Hello there, welcome on board. Monday morning, new day, new week. This is GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
The budget countdown is on and a swathe of economic sweeteners are being detailed today, but will it be enough to win an election?
We'll be speaking to the former Home Secretary, Priti Patel. She's live here in the studio just after 8 o'clock.
Given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire.
Well, despite early promises, ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas are in jeopardy as the two sides fail to reach a truce.
Are we facing a mathematics crisis? Despite a push from the Prime Minister, outcomes continue to fall across the country. Can it be reversed? Would it matter if it was or wasn't? How do you ever use it in life? Let us know what you think.
And later on at 7:30, it's National Butchers' Week, so we'll be debating whether meat eaters should be feeling guilty.
And in sport this morning, I'm going to keep it simple, out of respect for Mr. Holmes. City beat United. There we are, we'll leave it there. The trouble at Red...
They were meat eaters.
They were, weren't they?
Yeah,
yes, I know.
They had us.
It was just a carcass of United left there on the pitch.
Yeah.
I don't want to...
OK.
It's
pretty stupid, that flower right under your chin like that. Do you see what I mean on the screen?
Do you think so?
There? Yeah, I do.
Is it this one?
I'd move it away.
He likes butter.
Let's move that away. OK, and I'll have the coffee instead. Anyway, the trouble at Red Bull continues despite the Bahrain Grand Prix win, and the World Indoor Athletics Championships comes to an end with some British medals.
There's a cold, frosty, foggy start in places this morning, but we do have further wet and windy weather moving in from the west. Find out all the details coming up soon.
Budget. That's all you're going to hear this week. So the spring budget countdown has begun. It's going to happen on Wednesday. Then the Chancellor will outline the government's economic agenda.
Yes, well, speaking with Camilla Tominey yesterday on GB News, Mr Hunt made it clear that this is an election budget.
Likely to be the last budget before the general election. But British people are very smart. They recognise gimmicks. They don't want any tricks. What they will get on Wednesday is a prudent and responsible plan.
And despite remaining coy about what's set to be announced, he's hinted at tax cuts.
Well, joining us now is the diary editor of The Spectator, James Heal. Good morning to you. This isn't really the budget that he or the Prime Minister wanted to deliver, is it? Because there isn't as much money to play with. If they do make these longed-for tax cuts, then they're going to have to make savings elsewhere. Are either of those things going to be enough to do what they want in the polls and win the election?
Well, as you say, this is the last big gamble for the Chancellor ahead of the election, the last big lever he can pull. And it's been coined in some circles the sort of Tesco budget, every little helps, which is sort of lots of smaller tax rises to pay for one big tax cut. And we think that's going to be on national insurance. We previously were led to believe that it could be an income tax cut of about 2p, but because there isn't as much fiscal headroom, much money to play with for the Chancellor, it therefore was more likely to be national insurance this time around of about 2p.
James, here's what gets me. We all talk about what he hasn't got to play with in a responsible budget and all that sort of thing. Why does he even care? The likelihood is they'll not win the election. Why doesn't he give himself a vote-winning budget?
Well, this is the way he thinks he can do it, because, of course, we all remember 18 months ago, the Liz Truss mini-budget. Since then, the government's put a real emphasis on trying to take these watchdogs very seriously. So it's about trying to get some tax cuts, but also ensure that the markets don't go haywire.
And the problem is, the way he was sounding yesterday was very cautious, talking about being prudent and all of these things. The kind of language he used just after he went into office and tried to steady everything after Liz Truss had created quite a few problems, it doesn't sound like a Chancellor who feels particularly sure-footed. And as you say, they cut 2 pence off national insurance in the autumn statement. That hasn't moved the dial. Do they really think that this is going to change things for them?
We were quite right, yeah. In the autumn, there was £30 billion worth of tax cuts, and yet we saw 1-2 points in the polls move, if that. So I think there is a sense, perhaps, that also Number 10 has been talking up the possibility of tax cuts, and as soon as we had that autumn statement, they then moved on to that conversation around big tax cuts. But the Treasury is saying, hang on a sec, we haven't got as much money, fiscal headroom, as we thought we might have. So I think perhaps it is not necessarily assured that just by cutting lots of taxes, you're going to see that, not least because a lot of people want public spending and can't see the returns in terms of the NHS, etc., in this year ahead.
Nothing he is going to do, absolutely nothing, is going to make a darn bit of difference. We will go through Wednesday, he will announce what he's going to announce, and it won't affect any of our lives. What, you get 15 quid back here and they'll take 7 quid off you there, whatever. It will be completely ineffective. Why bother?
Well, I think one reason is about the politics of all of this, which is that if the Chancellor is able to shoot Labour's fox on things like non-doms, for instance, the windfall tax, you can then make the opposition spending plans be thrown into chaos as a result of that. So
do you think that would be do you think that would be something they'd be pleased to be doing, to steal the flagship policy off Labour at this later date? Would it not suggest that they're out of ideas? I mean, Labour seem quite thrilled that they might be stealing this because it shows, how desperate things have become. And also, just explain to everybody at home why suddenly there's less money to play with. And we talk a lot about this fiscal headroom concept, and this is the Office for Budget Responsibility, but they're often wrong.
Yes.
So why is it all being based on what they've said, and how come they got it so wildly wrong in the first place?
Well, this is the danger of economic predictions, unfortunately, and they have to do it in line with economic data, what they get in terms of inflationary data and what how the economy is going in different forecasts. And I think, unfortunately, as we've seen, the OBR has had a pretty lamentable track record over the past 10, 14 years or so, since it was set up in 2010 by the Conservatives. The reality is that often it comes down to what the OBR think, and because the government have put so much emphasis on what the OBR think, they don't have, frankly, the political capital to be able to challenge them and take them on in their estimates. In terms of what Labour are doing, of course, they're going to talk up the possibility of people leading on the battle of ideas, that Bridget Phillipson did yesterday on this very station. But actually, I think from talking to Labour people, they're saying, hang on a sec, if we don't have non-doms, we don't have the windfall tax, all we've got left is VAT raid on private schools. That's the only real economic difference between the two parties.
But James, he could do things like this tourist tax. We hear he's not going to do anything against this, and this is despite increasing voices within the business community to say, give us a break, give us a bit of momentum here, give us a feel-good factor with this. This is, explain what that tourist tax is.
This is about the amount of taxation that's applied on goods by people who don't live in the UK, who come here to buy goods in shops, etc. And people like Sir Roccaforte, who was on TV yesterday leading the charge on this campaign, was saying, hang on a sec, it's dissuading people from coming here and spending on our shops and goods and preventing British goods from being sold in luxury retailers. Now, I think the argument against that would be, hang on a sec, this is going to be something that benefits people, foreign nationals coming here. At a time of an election year, surely the Chancellor wants to put people first in Britain, and that's what his main emphasis is going to be. It's not about necessarily 5, 10 years down the line. This is about the next 12 months and how the Conservatives can try and hold on to seats such as Jeremy Hunt's.
What about defence? We got the distinct impression yesterday that he won't be spending any more on defence, despite all that we've been hearing from senior generals in recent weeks, and indeed just looking ourselves at the global pressures at the moment. Is that the right decision, the right call for him?
Well, I think Conservative MPs would certainly like to have a bit more on defence. I mean, there's always a bit of a sort of pre-budget ritual to these kind of things. Which
there is, but you've got to admit this is exceptionally turbulent international pressure time.
Of course, yeah, but I mean, we unfortunately for the past 35 years, since the Cold War ended, have not spent enough on defence. We've had the Cold War dividend, and as a result of that, we then are left to pick up the pieces with often an over-reliance on America. So ideally there would be something in defence spending. I suspect we'll see a bit of that, but not enough to go to assuage the concerns of Grant Shapps, the Defence Secretary.
So, James, looking into your crystal ball, when Hunt gets on his feet on Wednesday and makes his budgetary statement, what do you think commentators are going to say about it afterwards? I mean, will he cover himself in glory, or will people say, well, was that it?
I think it'll be a perfectly assured budget. I think there'll be one or two white rabbits out of hats, etc. But I don't think this is going to be the big vote winner, the election turner that a lot of Conservatives would want it to be at this stage of the polls.
I don't even know if there'll be a rabbit out the hat. Seeing the Chancellor previewing it on a Sunday doesn't often happen.
Well, he can't give way much, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There'll be something. There's got to be something.
It's got to be something. James Hill, thank you very much indeed. See you soon.
Good man. Internationally now, and an Israel-Gaza ceasefire is in jeopardy today after a weekend of talks in Egypt and Qatar.
Well, despite Israel provisionally agreeing to a 6-week pause, Hamas are yet to agree to their terms, which has led to Israel boycotting Sunday's talks in Cairo.
And in her most forceful comments yet, the Vice President of America, Kamala Harris, has issued her own plea for a ceasefire.
Given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table. This will get the hostages out and get a significant amount of aid in. This would allow us to build something more enduring, to ensure Israel is secure, and to respect the right of the Palestinian people to dignity, freedom, and self-determination.
That's Kamala Harris. Jotam Confino, Israeli commentator on this one. Jotam, how did you feel listening to what she had to say?
Well, first of all, it's the harshest comments we've heard so far from a very senior U.S. official on Israel's handling of the war. But I think she's right. I don't think that she's saying anything that isn't true. It's quite interesting, the timing, though. She's saying this just as an Israeli minister, Benny Gantz, is supposed to meet with her in Washington. And of course, she's also saying this as the Biden administration is getting more and more criticism for not doing more to stop the war, for continuing to support Israel. So I'm sure there has some domestic politics has to do with her comments, but nevertheless, her comments are very harsh, and Israel is feeling the pressure, both from the United States, but certainly from the international system.
Yeah, and look, many people, not least those who are living through all of this, hugely disappointed not to see the progress made over the weekend. What are the sticking points? It's all about a list, isn't it, of hostages, and Hamas absolutely insistent that they can't provide that whilst they're still being bombarded.
That's one thing, but it's also apparently, according to CNN, they spoke to one of the Hamas officials in charge of this, and he said that Hamas is sticking with its demands for a ceasefire. Long-term ceasefire, Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. Now, that's delusional. No country in the world would allow a terrorist organization like Hamas to continue ruling a territory after committing the worst massacre in modern history. So Hamas is dragging this out, and you can ask yourself why? Why, when the Gazans really, really need this ceasefire? Why are they dragging this out? They're doing it because that's their best card. As long as they have the hostages in tunnels, they have leverage over Israel. And as long as this war continues and the suffering in Gaza increases, the more pressure there'll be on Israel. And Israel will look as the bad guy in all of this, which it already is. That's the whole playbook of Hamas, to make the world forget what happened, what started this war, and to make Israel look as the only party in this conflict. So they are succeeding in that, and that's why they're dragging out these talks.
Jotam, I'd like to know your take on Ramadan. They're saying Ramadan gets in the way of all of this and will affect when a ceasefire, if a ceasefire was called. Could you just explain to me why that would be?
First of all, it's important to get a ceasefire before Ramadan, not only because of religious reasons. We know that during Ramadan, Muslims fast. They are already facing horrific humanitarian situation inside Gaza. So to be fasting in the middle of this is horrific. That's one thing. But the second thing is that usually every year during Ramadan in East Jerusalem, there are clashes between Palestinian worshippers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is located on the Temple Mount, the holiest place for Jews, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest place for Muslims. Every year we see clashes between Palestinian protesters and Israeli police. Now, to avoid this from getting out of hand, Israel has to have a ceasefire in Gaza so that it can focus on East Jerusalem. To have two fronts at the same time that are flaming or really chaotic is very, very difficult for Israel, but also for the Palestinians. Now, Hamas is the one that has an interest in seeing this whole region ignited. So for Hamas, this also plays into the whole strategy when they're negotiating with Israel. If they can wait until Ramadan kicks off, and if they can see an ignition in East Jerusalem, maybe even in the West Bank, they're succeeding. That's what they're hoping for, that the entire Palestinian people will rise against Israel.
Just briefly, finally, Jotam, just bring us up to date on the mood in Israel. I mean, just last weekend we were reporting on big protests against Netanyahu and the police on horseback having to charge at crowds there and water cannon and the like. Are there still people with dissenting voices on the direction of travel?
Absolutely. This weekend, we saw perhaps the biggest protest since the war began. People were ending a 4-day march from the Gaza border till Jerusalem, and thousands were demonstrating against the government. So absolutely, the anger is only growing. The longer the hostages are kept in Gaza, the more anger there is inside the Israeli population.
OK.
Jotham, thank you very much indeed. Always fascinating to listen to you, and thanks for your take and your perspective on things. We've got to leave it there. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom on this Monday morning. And a 7-year-old girl has died after a migrant boat carrying 16 people capsized in northern France.
She'd been travelling with her pregnant mother, her father and 3 siblings. The boat got into difficulty off the coast of Dunkirk in an attempt to cross the English Channel in the early hours of Sunday.
Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has defeated former President Donald Trump in another Republican primary, this one Washington, D.C. It marks her first victory over Trump in this campaign and, according to her team, the first woman to win a Republican primary in American history. However, she still faces almost impossible odds to defeat Trump as he leads on delegate counts.
And the chocolate maker Cadbury is marking 200 years in the business with the recreation of the first shop using chocolate. The piece uses more than 600 dairy milk bars and took makers 5 days to create.
Now, on the subject of Cadburys, I had a bit of a dilemma yesterday. Cadbury's cream eggs, but they do a mini version.
Oh, yeah?
They do tiny, tiny cream eggs, and they all come in a packet, and they're different flavours. They're even white ones within there. But the trouble is, they're all wrapped in foil.
Oh, yeah, so you get more work to get to the joy.
And
I'd just go for a mini egg on that basis, then there's no wrapping to deal with.
But they're all different flavours. There's honeycomb versions and things. So
orange is there? Or?
Yes, but the thing is that there is, as you say, there's more work for less return. And I think if I was Mr. or Mrs. Cadbury, I would be saying, very good, nice idea, we like this, but if we're running this again, let's have them without the foil.
Yeah, I think that sounds sensible. I do have to say, though, I don't like the gooiness of a cream egg. I like a hard, solid mini egg myself. Yeah.
And do you stick your tongue in the gooiness?
No, because I don't like the gooiness, so I would just avoid them altogether and just have mini eggs. Lots and lots of mini eggs.
These small eggs have hardness inside them.
Oh, do they? Some of them?
They do. Well, most of them. Most of them.
Right.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think I sampled quite a few, and I don't remember any gooiness at any stage. I just remember tin foil everywhere. Just more and more tin foil. Yeah. Not worth the effort.
But that's good if you've got kids, maybe. Slows them down a little bit. But have you seen this growing trend where people are buying sort of glass bunny rabbits and filling them up with mini eggs as a sort of decorative Easter egg display? I really want to get that, but I know that we would just work our way through it, so it probably won't. They would just put pebbles in it instead.
I did see a woman on Saturday coming out of a supermarket with a tranche of eggs. Yeah. So how far are we away from Easter?
Well, we're about 10 days into Lent, so another couple of weeks.
6 weeks. We've got 4.
Is it 6 weeks Lent? Right, okay, another 4 then.
You're not practising?
No, I am. I just don't remember the exact number. I have given stuff up for Lent. I don't know. Have you?
I didn't give eggs up anyway, I remember that much. I should have. No, I feel very bad about that. I feel I should have. So there's 4 weeks still left. But when I was young, my parents used to buy, and eggs were much bigger in those days, they used to buy big eggs and they would be placed on the sideboard or whatever it is so that you looked at them and...
the anticipation. That was the end goal.
That was the end goal, that you were coming to Christmas Day. But now there's Easter bunnies. Yeah. Play a part in all these
Well, it comes to the 26th of December and out come the Easter eggs, you know. Right. We're bombarded with them. Anyway, how do you do yours? Let us know.
How do you do yours, yes. Greg Dewhurst, how do you do yours? Let's have a look at the weather.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. We've got some frost around this morning, some dense fog patches too, leading to some tricky travelling conditions. And then all eyes on the west as the next weather system moves in. This morning, though, plenty of sunshine across the UK away from the southwest. Cold start to the day. This weather front slowly pushing north and eastwards through the day, coming into parts of southwest England, Wales and then Northern Ireland for the afternoon. Some of the rain could be heavy at times. The wind's picking up here too, but elsewhere staying dry. Plenty of sunny spells, though the sunshine turning hazy across eastern England by the afternoon. And temperatures, well, double figures for the vast majority, feeling a little warmer than the weekend. Into this evening time, this band of rain continues to push north and eastwards across the country, though it starts to weaken. Slows down across eastern parts of England, eastern Scotland here, giving a grey night with outbreaks of light rain and drizzle. Further west, some clear spells, but blustery showers quickly following on behind. Temperatures staying above freezing for everyone, with generally more cloud around. So a grey start across eastern areas on Tuesday morning, bright further west, but blustery showers quickly moving their way eastwards. But the east should start to brighten up as we move through the morning into the afternoon as that weather system moves out the way. A few showers starting to bubble up as the temperatures rise. And for most of us, getting into double figures by the afternoon. See you again soon.
Oh, here we go. Everybody's getting in touch this morning. Tricia in Basingstoke. Eamonn needs to try the cream egg bar. There's no foil, just delicious little bites of lovely filling.
No, I haven't had the cream egg bar. I've had a mini egg bar.
Oh, have you? Now that's more my cup of tea.
Yes,
OK, well, we'll do a swapsy.
Crispy mini egg bar in ensconced in chocolate, which I think is a good idea. These things, so there's a cream egg bar.
Yeah, there's a cream egg bar. And this one from John Andrews, he says, there's no celebration in the shrinkflation of Easter eggs. I would have to give each grandchild 3 Easter eggs each to make it one decent egg. And I know I'm going to set Eamonn off on this one.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you were just talking about how big the Easter eggs used to be.
They used to be. I mean, this is shrink. I mean, literally, whether your teeth were at a stage where they were ready to fall out when you bit into something, or the chocolate was thicker and harder and it made your teeth break, that's the way it used to be. And I used to look forward to getting a Cadbury's flake egg. My favourite was milk tray. That was luxurious beyond belief. That you would have the egg, and then below the egg there'd be like a piano keyboard, and that was full of all the milk tray things, the barrel and the strawberry heart and all that sort of thing. But now they're all rubbish. They're all rubbish. They're all thin. They're hardly worth. I do like a finger of fudge.
I do like a finger of fudge.
Finger of fudge is just enough to give yourself a treat. A finger of fudge is just enough, and it's good enough to eat. It's full of Cadbury goodness and something. I can't remember the rest of it, but anyway. I do like a finger.
Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking we need to be able to see what we're discussing. I think for later on in the programme, maybe we need to just nip across the road and get an array of chocolate Easter eggs so that we can sample them.
Sample and guide you, not for us, not for us, but to guide you as to what's going on out there.
Yeah.
But they used to be, yes, John, they were really thick. But now it's
not as good as it used to be. But I tell you what is as good as it used to be is the Great British Giveaway. This is our 3rd one.
Yeah,
and we are now giving away how much? The
total is ticking up to £12,345. I don't know why it's not £350 or £300, but it's £345. And, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, yes, very good. That's a bit of a novelty. Yeah. So that's the way it is. Some scientific formula maybe has worked that out. But anyway, it can buy you a lot of Easter eggs. Have a look.
We're springing into spring and giving you the chance to win the seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won, plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package to enjoy, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. You've got to be in it to win it, so don't miss out if you've missed out on the last two. Where have you been? You know what to do to get involved. Stay with us. Still to come, we're talking about our favourite subject of the morning, not Cadbury's cream eggs, but maths. There's a crisis continuing despite Rishi Sunak's bid to sort all of that out.
It's not a crisis.
It's not a crisis.
It's not a crisis. We're going to get a very good guy talking about it. He's superb with the subject. But there's not a crisis, and the reason it's not a crisis is none of us need it. We don't use it. You don't have to use it, so it's not a crisis if we fall behind in it. Talking about that and lots of other things about it next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, it's been a pet project of the Prime Minister, hasn't it? But we haven't seen any improvement in the nation's mathematics results.
Pupils from low-income backgrounds are especially falling behind, apparently, compared to pre-pandemic levels. There's a new report out, and it says maths performances dropped back to 2017 levels. No idea if that was any good, bad or indifferent. A man who's very, very good is maths teacher Bobby Siegel to tell us more on this. Bobby, you are a saint in this field. I have huge respect for you if people are interested in maths. But when we're talking about the levels that we are here, are we talking about arithmetic, or are we talking about higher levels of maths? I mean, I totally agree that everybody should be numerically competent in arithmetic. But after that, you lose me, mate, and I don't see the relevance of it.
Good morning, Eamonn, and good morning, Isabel. Always a joy to talk to you about maths. So I think the support here by the Education Policy Institute looks at math standards for students between years 3 to year 9. So the students about 7, 8 to 13, 14. So talking about mathematics, but I would say more like numeracy and arithmetic skills. And what they found is they've been looking at research for people or pupils who are the most disadvantaged compared to the ones who are averagely disadvantaged, or normal pupils. And they found that before the pandemic, there's always been a gap between disadvantaged pupils and non-disadvantaged people. I think it's about 7 months. And they found in the last few years, it's increased to 9 months. And ultimately, this is all about, if we think that tackling child poverty is really important, one of the ways of doing that is making sure that students from less advantaged backgrounds have good reading skills and numeracy skills. And I think this report has found that both in the reading and in mathematics, the average disadvantaged pupil actually is further behind. And again, you know that I'm a big believer in math skills. I think for young pupils, if they are sort of falling behind in their numeracy skills, and again, Eamonn, we're not talking in this case about trigonometry and Pythagoras theorem, even though I love that and I can talk about that at 6:15, 20 in the morning. I think these disadvantaged pupils are falling behind in those basic numeracy skills. And I think that's quite worrying if the government's big priority is to make sure that everyone has the chance to access educational opportunities.
Just tell me, do you think that schools put the same emphasis on maths and English? And I can only speak from my experience of my own children, where from literally the minute they arrive at school, it's read with your children every single day, minimum 10 minutes. At weekends, there was writing exercises. It was all about phonics, phonics, phonics. And my husband, who, like you, loves maths, would be saying, when are they going to start getting maths homework? He was itching for some maths homework. And it just seems to me that that's not been as much of a priority. Do you think that that is a typical experience?
Thing is, the results actually do bear that out in some ways, because the government, if they were here, they would say, look at there's something known as the OECD PISA tests, and these are tests that compare nations across the Western world. And actually, Britain's results have improved in the last few years. I think in maths, they've gone from 27th to 11th, and in reading, they're currently 4th best in the Western world. So Mr. Sunak would say, look, our results are rising. But what I would say, the flip side to that is that these results look at the middle, the average, the normal pupil. But again, I think the report this morning, Isabel, is all about the really disadvantaged pupils. And again, in society, these are the disenfranchised, the people that feel as if tech and AI is taking away their jobs. So for these pupils, they feel as if maths education is letting them down. Even though, again, as a teacher, secondary teacher, I know my friends who are primary teachers, they put a lot of effort into supporting all pupils. But I think as the least disadvantaged, or the most disadvantaged rather, they're really suffering in these times, academically, I think.
Numeracy and arithmetic, does that mean that resources are being put in the wrong areas? So the way I'm looking at this, the way I'm seeing this, and the way we're looking at certain age groups in this, should we be concentrating more on primary school children to give them an appetite for all of this?
Yes, I think, Eamonn, you sort of hit the nail on the head, mathematically speaking there, because what the government has done in lockdown is they introduced the tutoring fund, spent a lot of money on this, and it was meant to help close the gap. And to be honest, that's an important scheme. And I think they're planning on ending that closing tutoring gap. And I think, again, if a government minister is listening to this, I would say that tutoring program to help the most disadvantaged pupils, I think they need to continue those funds, because we know that the middling pupil, actually, they probably are doing, again, according to the external PISA tests, they probably are doing a bit better than before, but the most disadvantaged pupils are suffering more. And if we want to make sure students have the basic numeracy skills so they can access, again, applying for jobs and understanding the basics of a payslip, they need those skills. And I think the report today is all about saying, actually, those disadvantaged pupils are falling even further behind.
OK. Bobby, just before we let you go, the last time I think I spoke to you on here, we were actually talking about something completely different. You were appearing, was it on Netflix or something, on an arranged marriage show?
Netflix Indian matchmaking,
you were trying to be, you were being paired up. Are you still single or are you loved up? Just let us know before you go.
Can I tell you what? I'm now on 130 first different dates.
Oh,
still.
Well, that is a world record, probably.
I know, it's going to be a great book about it, the mathematical finding of Mrs. Seagull, and you guys know the exclusive when I finally meet her.
Well, we wish you luck in your endeavours.
And good luck to all the kids facing the math situation. I still don't believe there's a crisis, but I think there's a different way that we've got to look at doing this and see who's interested in it, because I just don't see what use it is to you at 16 and beyond, despite Sunak's nerdy attitude to it all. Bobby, we'll leave it there.
Thanks, Bobby.
You. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So 131 dates.
Not bad going, is it?
First dates,
I think, you know, if you and me went on one of those websites there.
Yeah.
So is the idea not to get a partner rather than date a partner? Is he doing it the wrong way or the right way?
I don't know. He's the maths guy. I mean, 130.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, were you good at maths or were you bad at maths?
I was very, very good at arithmetic and numeracy, and continued to be throughout my life. I'm very good at times tables and adding barbells up and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
But when we got to Pythagoras' theorem and trigonometry and whatever, I just could not form the connection. In other words, when I moved from primary school to grammar school, I just couldn't keep the connection going.
See, with darts, I can take the 501, I can take them off like that.
Can you?
But with anything with brackets, anything, I don't know whether I could call myself an A-level maths student, because I did study A-level because my mates did it, although I was terrible at maths. And I got through, I think, the first 2 months, and then we had our first test, and I thought, I'm in trouble here, so I'll miss the day. And then I was allowed to do the test on my own in the library, so I did cheat, and I got 4%. So I decided that me and maths are over. But is it fair to say that I studied maths at A-level?
Yes.
For that?
Yes.
So that's OK, even
2
though it's a
months,
couple of
you
weeks.
did technically study maths at A-level.
Right,
yeah.
fine.
I sat it twice at 16, the O-level basis, and I failed both of them.
Yeah.
So I don't have any mathematic qualifications. Is my life weaker as a result? No. Have I ever missed it?
Well, also with AI coming up, you know, I just feel like the real, you know, you look to the city and all these people that use maths for these big, well-paid jobs.
Yeah.
They're not going to need to do that anymore. Those jobs won't be there.
So sitting doing my maths yesterday, I looked at Marcus Rashford, a superb, amazing goal to be ruled out by Phil Foden's superb, amazing goal. But I just realised the only thing it did for Manchester City was sort of slightly annoy them. And, so United go 1-up. And
it's like, don't score against them, or else it gets them angry.
Gets them
you
angry.
wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
They are literally a league apart.
They are. Eric Ten Hag disagrees, but I think secretly he must know.
What's he
must know.
What's he got to offer?
Yeah, and the thing is, we have...
there was no chance of Manchester United winning that game yesterday.
No,
None.
there wasn't. So Jim Ratcliffe has also said that he wants, within 3 years, Manchester United to be up with City. It's going to take a lot of work, a huge amount of work. But also, I don't know about you, Eamonn, but you look at City's riches and people think how rich they are and the money they spent. But it's Phil Foden is the guy, and there's Phil there on the left, who is unbelievable. He's probably and Pep Guardiola would say he's the best player in the Premier League at the moment.
What, better than him?
I think he is. If we're talking about great goal scorers, that's
I'd take him any
Erling
day.
Haaland, but I think Phil Foden is a fantastic footballer. And also, he should be starting for England. So whether he will be, we don't know, because he hasn't been in the past. But I think...
Well, no arguments about that one. The World Athletic Championships were going on, the indoors, while that was happening.
Yeah.
How did they round up?
Well, it was OK. I mean, we got 4 medals. Do you remember they used to have indoor athletics at Cosford? Do you remember that? It used to be RAF Cosford. It was the only indoor athletics track there was in the country. And this was going through the 70s and the 80s. But this was held in Glasgow. Obviously, it's different these days. Gemma Reekie, yesterday, she got silver in the 800 metres. I mean, she's been through a lot. She split from her coach. This is when she was in South Africa. There was a big fallout, and it's like, what's going to happen? And she was ill for a while. So she's come back. She was the favourite, so she's a great chance for the Olympics. Josh Kerr, who won the World Championship in the 1500, so he won the 3000 over the weekend, so he's terrific. Never, and I can't quite get the sunglasses, though, indoors.
No.
You know?
No.
Does it aid the running in some way, do you think?
No.
I'm not really sure.
It's all cool. But listen, you know, you and I are old enough to remember Friday nights on BBC One and doing all this stuff. And
Crystal Palace, yeah.
Yeah, and how everybody was into it at the time. And it's tremendous. Athletics, just a tremendous thing to follow and be addicted to.
It is, but it kind of worries me because there's so much sport. It's not as popular as it used to be. Because it used to be highlighted on the TV and everybody would watch it. Yeah. These days, it's fun. I mean, Molly Caudry, she won the pole vault and she nearly lost a finger, you know, a couple of years ago. I don't know whether it would affect the pole vault.
Possibly, yeah.
But anyway, she was great and she won gold. So it all looks good for Paris. So, I mean, that's what it's all about.
When you come back, tell us about Max Verstappen.
Oh, I will.
Yes. Bahrain Grand Prix yesterday. We'll be talking about that and lots more 7:20. Thank you very much indeed. But still to come.
We're going to be looking at the front pages and the biggest stories of the day in Making the News with Dawn Neeson and Andy Jones right here on Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Well, to cut a very long story short, I was the chaplain in a school and a pupil asked me to preach on how come they were told they had to accept the LGBT stuff in a Christian school. I thought that was a fair question. So I said, ultimately, no, you don't have to accept anybody else's ideas. You make up your own minds. And so on topics like the marriage being between a man and a woman, biological sex being real, gender identity not making perfect sense, therefore can't be entirely true. I said, you know, you may adopt the church's position on that and respect the people you disagree with, but you make up your own mind, for which, as you say, I was reported to Prevent, the anti-terror watchdog, secular safeguarding authorities, the Teaching Regulation Agency, Disclosure and Barring Service, all of whom eventually cleared me, but I lost my job at the school, and that's why there's legal action ongoing.
It's an incredibly powerful sermon, to be fair. What do you make of Justin Welby in his current role? I've obviously rattled off quite a few things there. I mean, you've had personal experience of feeling quite abandoned. What's your view on his position?
Well, he's doing a very difficult job, in fairness to him. My personal view is perhaps he's not doing the best job of it. I'll be diplomatic about it. In a sense, I'm on the wrong side of things as far as he's concerned, I guess. Not a word of support, not a whisper from anyone in the Church of England's hierarchy for someone simply saying, you may accept the Church of England's own teaching. And I can't quite see how he can square that in his own head, but you know, he would have to answer to that himself, I guess.
I mean, the irony is that, though this is obviously through no fault of your own, the Church of England has recently baptised people who have gone on to not just be referred to Prevent, but actually commit acts of terrorism. Meanwhile, you were referred to Prevent for essentially teaching.
Dawn Neeson and Andy Jones discussing stuff that's making the news today. Dawn, we look at this, I don't know, this is just despairing. Police have failed to solve a single burglary in nearly half of all neighbourhoods in the country in the past 3 years.
Yeah, good morning. Happy Monday indeed. This is frankly horrific. It's a Telegraph exclusive analysis of police data shows that no burglaries were solved in 48% of neighbourhoods, areas covering between 1,000 and 3,000 people in the past 3 years.
Well, that's not just unlucky. That's obviously a policy.
It's just, well, but basically...
Nobody could be that stupid.
No, it's basically been decriminalised. It's like, and this was in 2022. Do we remember that all 43 police forces in the country promised we were going to investigate every burglary and take all seriously?
Well, at least attend them, if nothing.
Yeah, and it got worse.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is it has got worse since that. I mean, the proportion of burglaries since they said that has actually gone down. I mean, fewer than 1 in 25 reported burglaries are actually resulting in conviction now. It's like literally...
Have you ever been burgled?
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? OK, I was just going to say this, Isabel. The thing with burglaries, people dismiss it too easily. It can be incredibly traumatising.
No
really, really traumatising.
The thought of somebody in your safe space,
exactly
in your bedroom, rifling through your drawers, not knowing what they look like, and then not feeling like anyone cares.
In our street last week on CCTV, 2 guys were caught with machetes, right, who were going to break in. Anyway, it didn't happen, but it spooked a lot of people, and you can see them with these big machetes.
Oh, my God.
Like that. But here's my fear, Andy. I don't have anything for anybody to steal. That's my problem. I don't keep cash, right? So you're not going to have cash in the house. We don't have jewellery.
Yeah.
Right. So
but that's the fear, though, isn't it? That they'll try and
fear they're going to cut your fingers off.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
Your line.
They want your bank. They want your bank details. They want everything else.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. They're coming heavily prepared as well. They're not there to.
They would break in and steal TVs, but the TV's too big now. You can't take a TV. You can't take a painting off a wall unless it's.
No one's got any cash.
Nobody's got. So what do they steal?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I think it's tech a lot of the time. It's phones and laptops and things like that. People's cars. I mean, back in the day, when my granddad was burgled, they not only nicked, basically, they nicked his suitcase, right, nicked everything they could within the house, and that was just all sorts of rubbish as well. But they actually cooked a meal in his kitchen.
Oh, my word.
word.
But actually, that's better than what they used to do. They used to defecate.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. But it was just my poor granddad, when he was in his 70s at the time, lived on his own, and it's like, it just felt like he couldn't go back there after that.
Awful.
Yeah, I remember our house was burgled when I was a child. We were at a swimming gala and coming home and just not being able to sleep for months and months and months, just as a child, thinking that someone had been into our house. It really, really traumatised me.
Well, there's someone that comes into the houses in our area come from Ecuador and Colombia and Chile.
Oh, right.
A burglary tourist.
They fly into Heathrow Airport. They're then given assignments in areas. They go and they steal whatever they can. They bring it back to a warehouse. They're given a certain amount of cash for their troubles. They fly back home again. And then the loot is divided amongst British thugs or whatever.
Yeah, it's exactly the same with a lot of the shoplifting. The really high-end organised shoplifting is by people who fly in from South America or Eastern Europe, steal, dump all their stuff and go. And that's why it's very, very hard to prosecute them, because they're not here very long. They're effectively ghosts. Hertfordshire was the worst police force for burglary arrests. Only 1 in 50 reported burglaries resulted in a charge. So that's not even a conviction, that's a charge.
1 in 50.
So no deterrent about it at all. So if we were to shoot them all dead, what would that put them off, do you think, if we put up...
It'd be 1 less. But you'd be in the dock. They'd be able to charge you.
Well, you can't even injure them, can you? Couldn't even... We were talking about using a rounder's bat or a baseball bat to defend yourself.
You're the one that's going to get charged.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
Craziness. Should we talk about Jeremy Hunt's election budget, Andy? It's on the front. Well, we'll rattle through it then. Really just to say, you know, can he turn things around for the Tories?
Well, speaking of robbing you...
What am I going to tell you? Nothing in your life's going to change because of Jeremy Hunt on Wednesday.
No.
That's what I'm seriously meaning. Boring. Why are we even talking about it?
It is a bit moving deck chairs on the Titanic, isn't it? It is taking a couple of pence from one pocket and putting it in your other pocket. If you're interested in the numbers, I did write some numbers down. They're looking for £9 billion to balance this budget, and it's going to be a 2p cut in national insurance.
We think. We don't know for sure. Yeah.
Well, yes. And it'll be paid for... This 2p cut will be paid by stealth tax rises amounting up to £4 billion, along with possible plans to reduce government spending after the next election. So, I mean, they're just going to put it back with stealth taxes and something else. And also, euphemistically, reduce government spending. I mean, that's going to be impacts on the health service, potholes, policing, all of those other things.
Whitehall waste. Too many civil servants.
That's the thing.
One before, haven't we?
Well, we have, absolutely. And he does have a point. We do have a lot more than before the pandemic. But the thing is, on this one as well, Isabel, OK, we've got too many civil servants and a lot of them are paid a lot of money and most of them are still working from home, all the old clichés. But we don't have enough of them to actually process asylum seekers quickly. So there's sort of like something going wrong there. You know, why don't we move some of these excess civil servants to start processing asylum seekers properly?
The whole country has gone down the tubes. You're right about administration in the civil service. We haven't got enough people to administer things and make things happen as well. I was in Belfast last week, and I have never in my whole life seen roads as bad. Every single road, every road. I'm not talking about some roads. I'm talking about country roads, city roads, lanes, motorways, everything appalling. To a degree where I look and I think, we used to have such good infrastructure. We really did. And I think, how could that ever be put right? I don't think it can be put right.
No. And obviously the impact then on cars, on time and everything else. My roads this morning were appalling on the way here. And the other problem is they never keep anyone in a job long enough to fix it. We were on about... We have a new education minister every week, we have a new health minister every few weeks, we have a new... And it's all, we're going to change this, but you can't even keep people in the job long enough to even implement the
See, I don't think it'll make a difference who you change in government. They're all as bad as each other. But I do think the system is awful. It is not fit for purpose. The whole parliamentary system that we have is just ridiculous. It isn't there to achieve anything or get anything done. So it's a complete mess. And it's about time we all started standing up to politicians and saying, you're talking rubbish. You're talking absolute dribble.
You know what, Eamonn, what I thought this weekend is they really, really treat us like fools, don't they? They think we're idiots. They think we're going to see all these headlines this morning and all over the weekend and go, oh, my God, that's amazing. You're going to give me an extra 2p. Thank you. I'm so grateful. And A, it won't happen because you won't be around. And B, it's not going to make any difference. And C, why can't you sort all the problems out first? That's more important.
Yeah. Do you know what they really want to say? And it's quite obvious. They're really trying to say Ukraine has quite wrecked us financially.
Taken all the money.
Yeah. And we don't want to say it, but we don't want Ukraine. We don't want this war. We don't want to finance this anymore. There's no money for defence because we're spending it all on Ukraine. And that takes care of anything we had for our own people. And so Ukraine has gone out from the news. When is the last time you saw a Ukraine report on the news? It doesn't exist anymore. And wars, we're not. I mean, the idea that we're not in a position to defend the country or send out attack plans or anything else is just scandalous. That we haven't got a defence system.
Oh, come on, we've got 2 aircraft carriers. We haven't got enough people to man them both, but I mean, we've got 2.
We fired Trident the other day and it almost landed on top of the boat that fired it.
Oh
and
my
then
God,
the other
that
time
was
we
fun.
fired it accidentally towards
It was
America.
funny, but it's not funny.
Yeah.
I mean,
We got time to do a bit of care, or what?
Yes, a bit of care is very, very important.
I think this is linked into what we were just talking about with these ridiculous promises about tax cuts. The cash for care jobs visa scandal, undercover Mal probe has discovered that our vulnerable care residents are being looked after by unqualified migrants because they're being charged to be given visas, £20,000 by Conman to come over here and work. They've got no qualifications whatsoever, and they're working caring for vulnerable people in care homes and in care homes, in their own homes, and it's just absolutely appalling. Vacancies in adult care are at a record high, and the number of foreign workers given permission to come over is also at a record high. But a lot of them are paying these conmen, and they're being ripped off themselves, but they have no qualification.
There's no value placed on the job, as it should be.
Well, exactly, Eamonn. Rather than promise me all sorts of airy-fairy stuff about tax cuts, concentrate and treat people who work in care homes and who are working as carers properly. Pay them what they're worth. Treat it like the proper job it is.
Absolutely agree with you, Dawn, but it'll not happen.
Yeah.
It's not a priority at all for this government or any other.
It really should be, Eamonn. It's such an important job.
So we relaxed the rules in 2020 to basically allow migrants to come in if they do a care job because we need carers. And these carers are now, there are these link men, these con men. One of them was a Baptist minister who was charging carers £9,000, and he said, I'll arrange you a little care job so you can stay in the country.
He's like the agent, isn't he?
He's almost like one of these people traffickers almost. £9,000. Another one was charged £20,000, and they said it's not unusual to see these carers arrive with, or fake carers who haven't even got qualifications, some of them, with holdalls for cash, give you the job, and then they're then let loose in a care home.
They're the people that should be charged in court. But a fascinating thing again in Belfast at the weekend. So I'm socialising with a number of people and I say, well, where do we go for a bite of lunch? Why don't we go here? Why don't we go there? And 17 hotels in Belfast, 17 places where you would go for a lunch or a dinner or whatever happens to be, all bought up to house migrants.
Really?
17. I'm not talking. They don't hold 400. They may have 40 rooms associated with them or whatever. But 17 of them disappeared, who were part of all our lives growing up. That they were just part of the whole society there. Gone. 17 gone. And because there was no government supervising anything, all of this is allowed to happen over the last 3 years as well. 17 hotels taken out of commission and given.
So you can't get any rooms in these hotels. They're all just completely.
No, you've got big ones in the city centre and whatever, but road houses and things all gone. All gone. Absolutely incredible.
And I bet the people that worked in them have lost their jobs as well, because you don't need as many people.
But the thing is,
to
Ireland,
run a migrant
no one will
hotel.
talk about this. Everybody talks about what's going on in England. The migrant situation in Ireland, Southern Ireland, right? They all come in there. There's riots and fights and everything there, which no one's really talking about. And then what do? They can go north, they can cross the border. And when they cross the border, they can get to Belfast and they can go to Scotland or they can go to Liverpool or whatever. So they just come right into the UK and nothing's happening about it. So we've got Priti Patel after 8, she's 8 o'clock this morning. And she's a former Home Secretary. So we'll be saying to her, what would you do? Now, it's easy to talk tough when you're not in government itself. But Priti Patel always did talk tough about this, and not a lot of people liked it. But I just want to know, Dawn, the people who run this country, what do they want for it? I tell you what I would do straight away. I'd get rid of graffiti. I would get rid of litter. And I don't care what anybody says, because if your place looks well, you probably feel quite well within it.
Of course.
But graffiti and litter around this country is disgusting, around the whole country.
Worse than ever, the litter situation. Every motorway, I mean, you've talked about motorway litter for a long time, but honestly, I get to the point now where I want to stop the car and I want to get out and pick stuff up, and I think this is dangerous.
Absolutely,
But why are they not litter picking? And we've talked about this before. Gosh, we're on a bit of a rant now. We can talk to Priti Patel about the burglary story, but I also absolutely maintain there are perfectly fit and healthy and able-bodied people within our prisons who would do well to have a bit of and exercise.
Human rights.
Get litter picking. It's everybody's a winner in that scenario.
Well,
I don't understand it.
If I could get money, and here's what litter consists of: plastic, Lucozade and Ribena bottles, coffee cups and mugs from every outlet that there is. KFC, McDonald's, you just look, a motorway, milk bottles, well, they're not bottles, they're plastic, and you look at a slip road at a motorway, you go off the slip road, get it ready to go on the roundabout, whatever, just look down, absolutely up to your knees in the stuff. The people who do it are disgusting.
Yeah, there should be tougher charges for those people. Should we end on a high on this note, Dawn? This is a story, page 3 of the Mail. Over 80s are still happy in the bedroom.
I'm
wink,
so
wink,
glad
nudge, nudge.
you went to this story, Isabel. God, we need cheering up. It's a Monday morning. And this is a survey, ironically done by a care home organisation.
Oh, gosh.
I know, yeah. And it's many of the UK's over 80s agree with 81-year-old President Biden, who came out recently and said sex was very, very important still, secret to a long marriage. And 1 in 7, that's 14% of those aged 80 to 84 are still sexually active, according to this survey. And for those in their 70s, the figure is 1 in 5. So lots of grown-up cuddles going on for our older generation.
It's harder to find romance in your 40s than it is in your 70s.
Yeah. Oh.
And I think good luck to every one of them who have company and feel that this is the case, that they're not dead and gone.
As always, the younger generation are going, ooh,
well, of course,
you're not
we can all
really
remember the thought, oh, someone over 40 having sex. Horrifying. Now I'm over 40. Yeah, I realise that.
But young people aren't having any sex, but older people are. I think it's older people have got more time.
They're having more sex than us.
Yes.
Well,
everyone's having more sex than me.
Yeah, well, let's not go there. Dawn, Andy, appreciate it. We'll see more from you just after 7:30. But for now, let's say
we've been talking about a few things there today, so let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com. Good morning, Greg.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. We've got some frost around this morning, some dense fog patches too, leading to some tricky travelling conditions. And then all eyes on the west as the next weather system moves in. This morning, though, plenty of sunshine across the UK away from the southwest. Cold start to the day. This weather front slowly pushing north and eastwards through the day, coming into parts of southwest England, Wales and then Northern Ireland for the afternoon. Some of the rain could be heavy at times. The wind's picking up here too, but elsewhere staying dry. Plenty of sunny spells, though the sunshine turning hazy across eastern England by the afternoon. And temperatures, well, double figures for the vast majority, feeling a little warmer than the weekend. Into this evening time, this band of rain continues to push north and eastwards across the country, though it starts to weaken. Slows down across eastern parts of England, eastern Scotland here giving a grey night with outbreaks of light rain and drizzle. Further west, some clear spells but blustery showers quickly following on behind. Temperatures staying above freezing for everyone with generally more cloud around. So a grey start across eastern areas on Tuesday morning, bright further west but blustery showers quickly moving their way eastwards. But the east should start to brighten up as we move through the morning into the afternoon as that weather system moves out the way. A few showers starting to bubble up as the temperatures rise. And for most of us getting into double figures by the afternoon. See you again soon.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my new show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m, where real people get to meet those in power and hold them to account. Every week, we'll be hearing your views from up and down the country in the real world. Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. It's Monday, the 4th of March. You're tuned in to Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
What are you tuned in today? Let us know what you're up to. We'll be delighted to hear. Here we are at the start of the week, and here are the headlines.
The budget countdown is on, and a swathe of economic sweeteners are being detailed today. But will it be enough to win an election?
We'll be speaking to the former Home Secretary, Priti Patel. She's going to be here in an hour's time, live in the studio.
Given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire.
Despite early promises, ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas are in jeopardy as the two sides fail to reach a truce.
Looking ahead to the next hour of the programme, with the Chancellor set to launch a raid on second homeowners. We're asking whether owning a second home is selfish. Is it aspirational? Is it something you want to aspire to? Let us know your views.
And it's National Butchers Week, so we'll be debating whether or not meat eaters should be feeling guilty.
Oh, why not? We're guilty at everything.
Here comes the sport meet. The problem at Red Bull seems to be between Christian Horner and Max Verstappen's dad, Jos. Bottom team, Sheffield United, play Arsenal tonight, who scored 15 goals in their last 3 Premier League games, so say a prayer for them. And there's a new bull in snooker.
There's a cold, frosty, foggy start in places this morning, but we do have further wet and windy weather moving in from the west. Find out all the details coming up soon.
So here we are, the spring budget countdown has begun, and on Wednesday, the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, will outline the government's economic agenda.
What Hunt should do is raise the tax threshold, says Keith. This was frozen by Sunak and is due to be frozen until 2028. It has been the most appalling stealth tax of all. Scrapping it would benefit everyone, especially the low paid. Archie says, why doesn't he just raise the personal allowance to £20,000? I'm a pensioner. I'm now getting near the £12,500 mark, and if nothing is done, I can see me having to pay tax on my pension very soon.
Lots of people drawing links as well to the immigration crisis. John saying, the budget will not save the Conservatives. Give us a shilling back here and take 1 and 6 back there. Nothing can save the Conservatives. Out of control immigration will. It's sunk Rishi. And Archie, also talking about personal allowances. Oh, no, sorry, it was Glenn I wanted to read out. Yeah, it's a good budget tip. Stop the boats and save 15 million a day. So there we go. Lots of people linking it all to the
That'll be a Priti Patel question.
Yeah.
Militomany yesterday interviewed Jeremy Hunt. This is what he had to say.
Likely to be the last budget before the general election. But British people are very smart. They recognise gimmicks. They don't want any tricks. What they will get on Wednesday is a prudent and responsible plan.
Oh, God, why don't we all just go to sleep now? They don't want any gimmicks. They don't want any... Oh, for goodness sake. Despite remaining coy about what's set to be announced, he has hinted, though, at tax cuts.
Well, joining us now is the diary editor of The Spectator, James Heal. And we should sort of point out, we keep talking about the fact we have Priti Patel on in an hour, but she's one of these people on the right of the party who really, really, really wants the Chancellor to deliver on tax cuts. And there is a lot of noise coming from that wing, isn't there? Will they be disappointed on Wednesday? I suspect, given the kind of mood music we got yesterday, they will.
I suspect so, but equally, Jeremy Hunt has been really assiduous in trying to talk to all the MPs across the whole party, including members of the Conservative Growth Group, people like Priti Patel, who are pretty Thatcherite in their views, to try and make sure they're on board and try and stress the kind of Treasury arguments he's hearing about the lack of fiscal headroom, lack of manoeuvre he has. And so it won't be the kind of great Nigel Lawson tax-cutting budget that everyone would like it to be. They just think there's a sort of premium in economic prudence, and therefore the voters will reward that when it comes to the dispatch box.
So, Jibs, what are you saying? Are you saying he is pleasing the banks, for instance, on this one, and the Bank of England and the overlords and the Monetary Fund around the world? Because there is nothing, when he talks about the British aren't stupid, they can smell a gimmick. Yeah. People want gimmicks. He should want a gimmick going into an election which it looks like he's going to lose.
Yeah, I think even Houdini would struggle to get himself out of this one. You could have all the magic tricks in the world, etc., but the fact is, with a 20-point deficit, it's going to be very, very difficult. And given the way the economy's going, and you can see that in endless focus groups and polls, etc., people don't feel things are going great. What I would say is there's some interesting polling out today by Savanta, which shows that even after the past sort of 5 years, all the ups and downs, the Labour are still behind the Conservatives on economic competence and management. So I think that's the kind of hope that the Conservatives are hoping to play in for. They said, as Jeremy Hunt was saying there, if he went out there and announced, the abolition of income tax or something, people would immediately see through that. And, of course, it would not actually translate into any kind of poll gain. So I think that it's going to be a matter of small measures, hopefully trying to make it a bit more competitive and exploit Labour's weaknesses on things like the 28 billion Green New Deal spending round.
On the fact that you would say that they've very much been trying to talk to the likes of Priti Patel, the Conservative Growth Group, trying to keep them on board with what will be a disappointing offering on Wednesday. He's tried to explain to them, hasn't he, that the OBR have reduced how much they've got to play with. Well, the Conservative Growth Group and other members of the right of the party will say, why do you trust the OBR? They get their forecasts wrong all the time. A minute ago, they gave you 30 million fiscal headroom. Now it's less than half that. Why are you basing your entire budget on something that is so flaky?
Well, the simple answer to that is that they're weak and they're politically dependent on the OBR's budget forecast. I mean, you could have a whole big debate around the OBR, and people like Liz Truss and Simon Clarke would love to have that debate. The fact is, 18 months ago, Sunak and Hunt came in on the premise of obeying the OBR and listening to what the OBR had to say. And the fact is, the OBR does try and base it in economic modelling and grounding reality. If the Conservatives, the response to that is had built a better economy over the past 14 years, they wouldn't have to be so politically dependent on the OBR. And it's now a matter of just trying to deal with what they have in terms of getting away from that high-spending, high-tax model that we had during COVID. And it can be a little bit too late.
Should we talk about George Galloway?
Yeah.
Quite apart from budget news, obviously we had the shock Rochdale by-election last week, and then the resulting speech, slightly strange speech from the Prime Minister on the steps of Downing Street, which a lot of people thought was going to announce an election. But what did he make of that? And, what's happening today in relation to George?
Well, I thought it was an interesting attempt to try and bring in some of the Prime Minister's own backstory on all of this. The first British Asian Prime Minister feels able to talk about some of these issues in terms of not being perhaps as squeamish as someone his party might be. He was trying to sort of moderate his language, but also acknowledge the threat that a lot of people feel is going on in Britain right now in terms of the threat to protest and democracy, etc. In terms of today, we're expecting to see George Galloway sworn in around 2:30 this afternoon.
Is he a threat to process and democracy?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I thought it was interesting timing in terms of response, but I do think there are questions about some of the tactics used in that campaign last week, and I'm sure that coming on the back of MPs' security concerns, etc., it's going to be a theme we see more of in the coming weeks. But yeah, Galloway will have a meeting this morning with the Speaker, discuss his own office, etc., and things like that, and we might see a press conference featuring Mr. Galloway later today.
I think it's really refreshing to see someone who is as off the wall as George Galloway, a very, very intelligent man, whether you agree with his politics or not. And can the House handle him? Do they know how to handle him?
Well, we've never seen George Galloway in the social media age before, and so you can instantly see those speeches, Eamonn, will go viral. The things he'll say will probably go on TikTok and Instagram, etc. In terms of how the House will handle it, he is just one man in 650. Now, he does fill a gap. There's a bit of a vacuum right now for someone who's a bit more charismatic on the left, I'd say. Clearly, someone who can wed social conservatism with a kind of more populist view on foreign policy. And I think that he will be a thorn in the side of Keir Starmer. Equally, I think Labour are right not to take their eye off the ball and continue focusing on the Conservatives. So I think, although there's some concerns in Labour this weekend, they haven't been necessarily panicking, which is probably the right response to Galloway's election.
The George Galloway in the social media era, did you see him going viral last week for Shania Twain lyrics? Yeah. You don't impress me. much. Talking about Rishi Sunak. It did make me laugh, quite aside from anything else. Thanks very much, James Hill, for bringing us up to date on all the politics today. Appreciate it.
On the international front in Israel, Gaza ceasefire's in jeopardy after a weekend of talks in Egypt and Qatar.
Well, despite Israel provisionally agreeing to a 6-week pause, Hamas are yet to agree to their terms, which has led to Israel boycotting the talks on Sunday in Cairo.
Well, you're not going to hear her most forceful comments yet. You don't hear much from US Vice President Kamala Harris, but she's issued her plea, her own plea, for a ceasefire.
Given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table. This will get the hostages out and get a significant amount of aid in. This would allow us to build something more enduring, to ensure Israel is secure, and to respect the right of the Palestinian people to dignity, freedom, and self-determination.
Let's get analysis on that now. The Evening Standard's defence editor, Robert Fox. Robert, what's she saying on behalf of the US government?
I think the US government has shifted, Eamonn, as you have spotted, because she said straight out there's got to be a ceasefire now. It's very interesting that the Biden-Harris, and the Harris is really coming to the fore. She has a foreign affairs responsibility, not that you'd have seen it that much, because it's been run by Sullivan, the national security advisor, and Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State. But it's now Harris saying, ceasefire now, and it's a message to Netanyahu, and it's a message to the Hamas management in Qatar, the political management, and the command in Gaza itself. I think the protest by loyal Democrat voters in the Michigan primary was a shock. There was a substantial minority that said, look, we don't care for the way that you have been running your policy on Israel, Gaza. And it was a slap in the face for Biden. And I think it's that primarily that's got them to move. And it isn't just Kamala Harris's statement in Alabama yesterday. That's the foreground. The background is extremely interesting.
Where does this leave the ceasefire, Robert? I mean, last week we saw Joe Biden licking an ice cream and giving an impromptu sort of forecast that by Monday, you know, all guns would be laid down. And here we are, no closer, it feels. You know, what's gone wrong? And is there any hope of peace, however short period of time that might be for?
Well, this is my comment and analysis. It's the politics of Benjamin Netanyahu on the one hand, and the politics of the real Hamas hardliners who seem to have little interest in peace and humanitarian aid over much to the Palestinian people. And as I said, the background is that Harris and Sullivan saw Benny Gantz over the weekend in Washington. They are not seeing Netanyahu. They're seeing a deputy in the coalition government, former leader of the opposition, former commander of the IDF, who is regarded as reasonable. That's the message. By seeing him, they're saying they regard Netanyahu as unreasonable. Things are moving, but probably too late, because what they have got to do is that they've got to get some hold on Netanyahu. Netanyahu has cancelled on promising initiatives quite a few times now, as indeed we've had the political game, which is quite obscure at times, between their different centres of power and centres of influence of the Hamas command.
OK, Robert, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much. Keep us updated if there is any big development. And as I say, we're all eyes on that situation at the moment. Things looking rather tense. Appreciate it, Robert Fox from the Evening Standard.
A new police task force has been set up by forces from the southeast of England to stop rural criminals stealing millions of pounds worth of farm equipment. We go to our southeast reporter, Ray Addison, because he went for a ride along the Thames Valley as police checked suspicious vehicles.
The
Yeah, so it's this one just up here on the left. It's a large excavator, which, despite its size, do get stolen quite regularly.
PC's Urine and Little are on the hunt for countryside offenders. Patrolling the A34 near Abingdon, they've noticed a suspicious vehicle carrying plant machinery.
Spotting it on the A34, especially heading southbound, it could be heading towards the port and being exported abroad.
The driver is flagged down and escorted to the nearest way station for checks.
Let me just check to see which bay we're going to go into. Anything I can do, mate, just let me know.
Jack has been hauling plant and farm machinery for 5 years, but he says this is the first time he's ever been pulled over.
The thing is, truck drivers are often kept in the dark, so if that was stolen, granted it's not, but if it was, I would never have known, would I?
As far as you're aware, it's all...
As far as I'm aware, it's all good.
I've got a spare one, I've got more in there.
But Jack's just the latest driver to be stopped under the new South East Partnership Against Rural Crime. It aims to create a hostile environment for criminal gangs that target and exploit isolated communities. Matthew Barber is Thames Valley Police and Crime Commissioner.
We do see significant levels of violence, but also significant threats of violence. And we're often talking about people who maybe are perhaps living in isolated communities, and it can be really terrifying to have several people turn up on your property late at night under cover of darkness with weapons, masked, making really serious threats. This is not some trivial issue. We're talking about people's lives and livelihoods.
Well, I'm going to say it's clean for us, isn't it?
Police Inspector Stuart Hutchings runs the task force. He says there's a worldwide market for this equipment.
We all understand the value of a BMW, of an Audi, but actually the value of a tractor may be 2, if not 3 times the amount. And we have to understand as well, the things we're looking at may have been stolen from all over the country over a massive timescale.
Stolen machinery can be smuggled out of the country and as far away as the United States. Right now, due to the war, there's huge demand in Ukraine. But checking this kind of kit requires specialised training, as PC Little explains.
We're starting to get to know what these machines should have, where all the markings should be, so we're getting more confident in checking it, so we're just trying to push that. In terms of this machine in particular, so it's got the data tag triangle on the side. We can check that instantly just at the roadside on our phone. So I've checked that, it matches the plate that's on the side, plate's not been tampered with, and it's all registered to the company that's towing it today.
As far as you're aware, it should be registered to Hitachi.
Hitachi, innit?
Okay.
No offences were found today, and that's good news for Jack, who after a short delay can finally carry on with his journey.
No issues whatsoever, so they can go and hopefully try and find someone that is doing something wrong.
But with crackdowns taking place across the southeast, he can expect to be pulled over a lot more frequently in the future. Ray Addison, GB News.
The crime stories never ending this one. Just a reminder, we have Priti Patel coming on just after 8 o'clock, former Home Secretary. Lots to talk to her about, not least that story we were just hearing there.
And things you have to talk to her about. What would she do if she got a cabinet post again? Does she think the Conservatives will win the election? Will she be a leadership candidate in the future? Let us know. Other stories coming into the newsroom. Here's what we've got for you. A 7-year-old girl has died after a migrant boat carrying 16 people, 10 of whom were children, capsized in northern France. She'd been travelling with her pregnant mother, her father and 3 siblings.
The boat got into difficulty off the coast of Dunkirk in an attempt to cross the English Channel in the early hours of Sunday.
Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has defeated former President Donald Trump in the Republican primary in Washington overnight. It marks her first victory over Trump in the 2024 campaign, and according to her team, the first woman to win a Republican primary in American history. However, she still faces almost impossible odds to defeat Trump as he leads on delegate counts.
And the chocolate maker Cadbury is marking 200 years in business with the recreation of the first shop using just chocolate. The piece uses more than 600 dairy milk bars and took makers 5 days to create.
So you can eat the shop?
You could eat the shop, yeah. Would you dip it in tea, or what would you do? Break it up, make it into a cake? I don't know. But Cadbury's is one of those much-loved brands, isn't it? What would we do with that?
Until the Americans bought it.
Yeah.
It's all
That's
a bit funny.
Sugary.
We were talking about favourite type of Easter eggs earlier. Did anything come in?
A few, but not any to hand at the moment. But yeah, lots of you sharing our enthusiasm for for chocolate. Cream eggs was your favourite this morning.
Too rich for me.
Too rich?
No. Fudge was.
Oh yeah, the fudge finger.
I like fudge. Milk tray overall. In its day, when chocolate was thick and chocolates were plentiful, now you just get this sort of little bag of 3 sweeties in it and whatever nonsense. Anyway, the weather situation. Bit of a mixed bag over the weekend, wasn't it? Let's go to Greg Dewhurst.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. We've got some frost around this morning, some dense fog patches too, leading to some tricky travelling conditions. And then all eyes on the west as the next weather system moves in. This morning, though, plenty of sunshine across the UK away from the southwest. Cold start to the day. This weather front slowly pushing north and eastwards through the day, coming into parts of southwest England, Wales and then Northern Ireland for the afternoon. Some of the rain could be heavy at times. The wind's picking up here too, but elsewhere staying dry. Plenty of sunny spells, though the sunshine turning hazy across eastern England by the afternoon. And temperatures, well, double figures for the vast majority, feeling a little warmer than the weekend. Into this evening time, this band of rain continues to push north and eastwards across the country, though it starts to weaken. Slows down across eastern parts of England, eastern Scotland here, giving a grey night with outbreaks of light rain and drizzle. Further west, some clear spells, but blustery showers quickly following on behind. Temperatures staying above freezing for everyone, with generally more cloud around. So a grey start across eastern areas on Tuesday morning, bright further west, but blustery showers quickly moving their way eastwards. But the east should start to brighten up as we move through the morning into the afternoon as that weather system moves out the way. A few showers starting to bubble up as the temperatures rise. And for most of us, getting into double figures by the afternoon. See you again soon.
Thank you, Greg. You could win the Spring Essentials. This is our latest Great British giveaway, and things have changed because you'll get a garden gadget package, a shopping spree, and
£12,345 in cash.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And here are all the details of how you can take part.
We have a ton of top prizes to be won in our spring giveaway. There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like, along with £500 in shopping vouchers for your favourite store, a games console, a pizza oven and a portable Sonos smart speaker. And the best news? You could be our next big winner, just like Phil.
Whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Garden gadgets, that would be right up your street.
Right up my street, yeah, although my gadgets just stretch to a kneel pad to kneel on. Nothing too technical.
Well, kneeling, you've got to get that bit right.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise your back suffers no end. But anyway, if you're interested in gardening or not, you've got enough money there to spend it on whatever it is you fancy. And as Phil attests there, he's funding his old wedding, isn't he, based on what he won last time round.
Well
so get involved.
Well, enough of the feel-good factor here. Again, we're going to make you feel guilty. Do you feel guilty as a meat eater? We've got to find something every day to make you feel guilty about, right? Because apparently if you don't, you should. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's National Butchers Week, so maybe we should be supporting our butchers and going and keeping our butchers in business. Or maybe you feel guilty about it. Let us know where you stand, and we'll be debating it right after this.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
Is a debate on gender really a far-right issue?
Far right. I'm so bored of that phrase, you know what I mean? Like, anyone who talks about... anyone who acknowledges that there are two sexes is suddenly far right, because that's what Hitler and Mussolini were all about. This question from Shirley is, of course, about Labour. They've been accused of being undemocratic because they pressured a pub into cancelling a debate, and this debate features Kelly J. Keane, who's been on this show a couple of times, and she's a campaigner, and she was just on the panel, and then they got a letter saying that they couldn't do it because Kelly J. Keane apparently attracts far-right groups. Now, they've tried this trick before, but because some awful, ghastly neo-Nazi types turned up near to an event that she was holding in Australia, they kind of tried to blame that on her and suggest that the two were the same thing. They weren't. That was an opportunistic group turning up to... They're not... Neo-Nazis aren't pro-feminist. They're not pro an event called Let Women Speak. That's just ridiculous.
New Zealand's TV blurred her touching her zip because they said that her touching her zip was a far-right dog whistle because she's making that symbol.
Yeah, but she wasn't making the symbol, she was just adjusting her zip.
Yeah, and also, this isn't a far-right symbol.
I mean, that was incredible because she obviously wasn't making that symbol anyway. She was just adjusting her top. But this New Zealand news channel blurred out the hand so that they could pretend that it was some horrible ghastly...
Yeah.
I mean, this is stuff, isn't it?
She's talked about having voted Labour in the past. She's so not far right.
But also,
I mean,
even if she were right-wing, which she isn't, why would they be banning a panel where there's a discussion about one of the most important issues of our day? What are Labour playing at here?
They're anti-democratic, aren't they? They're just kind of playing whack-a-mole with things they don't like. I think maybe I'll write to the pub and say I do want to see Kelly J. Keane there.
Yeah, but they won't listen to you
well,
if
no,
you say that, will they?
Won't.
Because you've got the unfashionable opinion, Chris.
Well, I'm the unfashionable workplace.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Now, this week is National Butchers' Week. National Butchers' Week is... do you have a good butcher? Do you know a good butcher?
We have a really good butcher next to our farm shop, yeah.
It's nice to be able to celebrate that. It is a celebration of skill, of craftsmanship, of what these people do and what they have to do. You see, I think most of us just think bacon or pork chops or whatever it is come in a packet from the supermarket. No one ever thinks how they get there or anything else like that and what has to be done. But a new environmental and social pressure has seen more and more people getting rid of meat, and they don't bother meat. Hasn't hit my house, but apparently it's quite common.
So today we're asking whether meat eaters should feel guilty.
Joining us now to debate this is PETA, Senior Communications Manager. There's Jennifer White and...
We have the butcher shop owner, Jamie Cooper. Good morning to you both. This is an interesting one because even if people do decide, Jamie, for environmental reasons, whatever, to shun meat on a Monday, say meat-free Mondays, perhaps they should be eating less supermarket-bought meat and more from their local butcher, if anything.
Definitely keeping it local is always going to be better for any business, not only butchers, but, you know, fruit and veg shops to anything independent. We always support independent.
Yeah. And what have you had to do today, Jamie? What's involved in the job so far today that we, the public, wouldn't know about?
Well, behind me is a big team of 20 staff in our business, in our independent butcher shop, where the part of the job is getting up early, very early. We're early birds. The early bird catches the worm, not just because of the prep work. There's a lot of preparation. Love and attention and care goes into this business for our customers and the business that we're in, the appreciation of the meat being independent as we are. But always saying independent because, as you said, you know, supermarkets have a big toll on what's happening in the meat industry and why it's going the way we don't like to see it happen, which is mass production, injected and everything wrong with what we don't want to happen, but it is happening.
Well, listening to all of that is Jennifer White. I mean, do you accept that perhaps if people are trying to think a bit more about the effects of mass-produced meat, whether that's cruelty to animals or whether that's over-farming land or the impact on the environment, perhaps feeling guilty about eating meat's not the way to go. Perhaps you make more ethical decisions and you go local and you go to your local butcher. It might cost you a bit more, but by sort of shaming everybody, is that really the solution?
Well, look, anyone who feels ashamed or uncomfortable after learning where that steak or sausage comes from really needs to think about why that is and what those feelings mean. And I imagine it's because people are realizing that meat isn't just something to throw down on a plate at mealtime. You know, this is the flesh of a living, thinking being who can feel pain in the exact same way as we can, and who certainly did not want to die to be turned into a sandwich filler or a burger. So anyone who has those feelings of guilt, please put them into action and go vegan today. It has honestly never been easier to pick the vegan option, which has all of the taste and none of the cruelty as the meat counterpart.
But Jennifer, the man beside you there, Jamie, or the man you can see on your screen, that means the end of his living, a living that's been in his family for a long time. How do you reconcile that? How do you then have a conversation with this guy and say, I'm sure you're a very nice man, but I don't want you in business?
Well, of course, you know, this isn't going to happen overnight, but if you look at history and society and how it's evolved, businesses are always changing, and savvy businesses are growing with the times. They're seeing that consumer demand for vegan food, and they are adding vegan lines to their businesses in order to stay relevant. So that's absolutely something that Jamie could take on board. Why don't you offer some vegan sausages for your customers instead?
So I have. So yes, everything you're saying, I understand. Now, research and everything that you've said is coming on board. I beg to differ. Researches and statistics and everything that I've researched in the past 2 years, especially vegan food, restaurants, vegan takeaways, things getting taken off the shelves now because of the ultra-processed stuff that you shouldn't be putting in your bodies, that people aren't supporting. More people are supporting meat now because there's a lot of, especially because of social media, there's a lot of people actually telling the truth, scientific facts about what your body needs and why there are problems in people's bodies, going down the lines of ultra-processed, sugary rubbish that the supermarkets provide.
I mean,
now,
can I just
our industry is £10 billion a year in the UK, £10 billion meat industry compared to the £1 billion vegan meat industry. And it's not getting any better. There's more people. Our company, not just our company, the meat industry is growing more.
Let's hear from Jennifer now, Jamie. Let's hear from Jennifer.
The World Health Organization has classed processed red meat as a class 1 carcinogen. This means that it has the same cancer-causing properties as asbestos and smoking. Red meat is also filled with cholesterol and a host of other things that we just do not want to be putting into our bodies. We know that vegan foods, vegetables, fruits, nuts, pulses, they have all the things we need.
But Jennifer, is that your main concern, or is your main concern animal welfare and cruelty?
I mean, of course, you just need to go to PETA's website and you can see for yourself how animals suffer on Britain's farms. And it doesn't matter what label they have, high welfare, free range. These are all in place to make humans feel better. They do absolutely nothing to make the quality of the animals' lives better. And most people can't even watch more than a few seconds of it. And if you can't watch how these animals are treated, then you certainly shouldn't be buying their flesh to eat it.
Jennifer, what did you have for your breakfast today, or what do you intend to have?
I plan on having some porridge this morning with a bit of peanut butter and some fruit.
And would meat feature for you, Jamie?
Meat for breakfast? No, I don't eat breakfast. I fast till 12. I've been on a diet for some time now, and part of this year is I don't eat till 12 o'clock.
Yeah, okay, but I think you have a lot of sense what you talk about, the pre-prepared, the processed rubbish that we're forced to eat. Listen, Jamie and Jennifer, people will now have their say, and we'll reflect that throughout the rest of the programme. But you two, thank you both very, very much indeed for highlighting things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good, thank you. So Jamie's away about his job there. You do admire people, who he runs that shop and he does it at such a level, and he's absolutely right about processed stuff that we get and that we're made to have that is tasteless and is their own colour and all sorts.
But Jennifer's also right. Most people can't watch more than a few seconds of what happens in an abattoir, and we do have to sometimes confront the reality of how food ends up in front of us, whether that affects the end decision or not. To be decided.
I mean, cattle can be very loving. They're quite those big,
they remember,
big eyes
recognise faces and things.
And I would find it very hard to be a farmer and rear an animal for a long period of time.
Do you know what I watched over the weekend? I was watching Ben Fogle reenacting the steps of Shackleton down in the South Pole. And they took their pony socks with them. And the plan was, Shackleton did, that they were going to eat socks once they reached the South Pole. This little pony had to take all of their kit to the South Pole and then they were going to eat him. But actually, sadly, the pony fell down a crevasse and died. So then they lost not only their their food source, but anyway, imagine that, having this lovely pony with you day in, day out in all of those environments, and then at the end going, sorry, socks, we're going to eat you now. I couldn't do it, but I do eat meat.
I thought you meant they were going to eat socks. The pony was called Socks.
The pony was called Socks, It was sad.
So that was on... You saw that, was that yesterday?
I don't know if it's new, to be honest. I just watched it because I like Ben Fogle's expeditions.
But Scott of the Antarctic, starring John Mills, was on yesterday on BBC One. That's a great film.
Oh, the moment they have to kill the ponies.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sadder in that bit than I am when you get Oates says, I'm going to have to step outside maybe sometime.
Maybe sometime. Do you know Captain Oates was from Ballymena in Northern Ireland?
Was he really?
He's one of us.
Oh, really? I may.
It's interesting how they recruited people, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Some people paid to be there, some people begged to be there.
And it's preserved, isn't it? The actual stage, they found it. They found where they died, and it's everything from 1912, still
Giant
exactly
freezer.
as it was.
Yeah.
Goodness me. Okay. So we're going to have more from Mr. Pauly, not be talking about Scott Antarctic or Shackleton or anything else, but we'll be talking about Manchester City and lots of other things after this.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
Welcome back to Headliners. And Paul, we're going to get straight into Monday's mail for some good old-fashioned, traditional male breastfeeding.
To answer the question, what is the latest woke hell, Josh? Row as hospitals say hormone-filled milk from trans women who were born male is just as good for a baby as the real thing. It's possible for men, if they pump themselves full of estrogen, to grow larger breast tissue, and they often do.
Or you just eat lots of burgers.
Exhibit A. And once you've done that, it is actually then possible to express or lactate a liquid. Okay. If to that liquid you then add another load of pills, medication, chemicals, whatever, that lactation juice can be fed to a baby.
We don't really... This is not for the sake of the baby. The baby has no benefits from this whatsoever. The studies are very weak on it. It's a bit worrying because, you know, when hospitals started indulging in homeopathy and having, the NHS had homeopathic hospitals, that was worrying because they're supposed to be a trusted authority. And before saying something like this, there should be an awful lot of study done.
I want to shame this hospital. This is
whether it's necessary.
University Hospital Sussex NHS Foundation Trust. That's who it is. And they have written one of the stupidest sentences I have read aloud in the 2 years that I've been privileged to do this show. It says, the term human milk is meant to be neutral and not gender biased.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Oh, my God, we're laughing at you.
I mean, and as someone says here, babies are not props. And that's the scary thing. And when we're not focusing primarily on the health of a baby.
No, but the feeling of a person doing it rather than... It's a bit of an odd way to go, isn't it? So...
Big news, big debates, big opinion,
Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Bahrain Grand Prix. We're going to get to the football very shortly, but let's talk about the Bahrain Grand Prix. Christian Horner, Red Bull. Paul.
Oh, dear. So Max Verstappen won that very easily. No big surprise. Red Bull, it was like 6 seconds in front, so they win the Bahrain Grand Prix. So the feud seems to be... Now, the story, we know about the texts that were assumed to have been sent, and then there was the hearing with Christian Horner. They said that he's going to keep his job, and Red Bull had investigated this. That looks like that's moving very fast, that picture. There we are. And there's Verstappen. So it looked like everything was going to be fine. Then the story of these texts came out at the end of the week. And now, and I was saying this on Friday, it looks like someone is behind this. Someone wants Christian Horner out of his job. There's no question about that. And now it seems that probably the leading suspect is Jos Verstappen, who is Max Verstappen's dad. So there's a little power struggle, it seems, here. Now, we're expecting that it looks like, whether it's all conjecture and whether it's rumour, that Jos has then been speaking to Toto Wolff. And Toto Wolff is the man who's in charge of Mercedes. Now, to get to the bottom of this, we've got Lewis Hamilton. He's leaving Mercedes to go to Ferrari, and then there's an empty seat at Mercedes. So is Jos now saying, well, either Horner goes or my son will be off to Mercedes next year. So it seems there's this power struggle which is going on. It started with the text, it's getting bigger and bigger, so something is going to have to go through this. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if eventually it is Christian Horner. There he is with Jerry. I mean, she's flown over to Bahrain. It seems like, whether a PR thing to show this unity between them, it all looks a little uncomfortable and is completely overshadowing the racing, which Formula One are unhappy about, and obviously Red Bull would be as well. And this is what Jos Verstappen said.
The girl band that put out the whole thing about girl power, both Victoria and Jerry, when their husbands have allegedly been unfaithful, coming out and holding hands and show of unity. It's not very girl power, is it? Well, I'm staying by my man even if he cheats on me.
You know what? There's girl power, and then there's a matter of what's the right thing. Am I going to try and save my marriage? Or it's a lot bigger than this.
Tammy Wynette was out in 1976
stand or so. By my man.
But did she stand by her man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to be a woman. Anyway.
Who did he drive for? Her husband that she stood by? I'm not really sure.
Well, look, sometimes it's hard to play against Manchester City. Most times it's hard.
Yeah.
United yesterday scored a magnificent goal from Rashford. Magnificent. To get us underway 1-0.
Yeah.
But it just simply poked the bear, didn't it?
It did poke the bear, and you knew that it was coming. Man City, I mean, the amount of possession they had, 74% possession. I know it generally doesn't mean anything because it's about how many goals are scored, but they had so many more shots. And Manchester United only had one shot on target, and that was the one that went in.
That's what
so it's Man City. It's
no argument,
it's
mate.
A free hit.
It was men against boys.
It really was.
They're breathing down Liverpool's neck and whatever and all of that.
They really are.
What is this golden ball in snooker?
Yeah, I wonder how you feel about this, because someone that's hosted snooker and knows snooker as well as you do, this is the Riyadh Masters, which is happening this week. So the idea, and I still can't really see the point of this personally, but it's about scoring a 147, the maximum break, is that as if that's not enough to score a 147. And by the way, Rose O'Sullivan only said last week that he's going to go on strike with scoring maximum breaks because he thinks that the reward is not big enough. So what they're going to do is have a golden ball, which is worth 20 points, and the golden ball... That's the wrong ball. Look at that. It's an 8 ball. That's a pull ball. But that's not the ball we're looking for. But anyway, you get the idea. So the actual golden ball will sit on the bulk cushion behind the green. And then if it's only in play if a 147, if a maximum break is on. If it's not, they take the golden ball out of the way. But if it is, red, black, etc., as soon as they pop the black, Then they go for the golden ball.
So they've
and if
got
they manage
147.
Got to be in a 147.
They've already got the 147. Then the golden ball comes in.
Then the golden ball, but the golden ball will be on the table the whole time. But they need to pop that and they'll win like 400 grand if they manage to do it. So it's just another ball on top of it. As if 147's not enough, which is the hardest thing to do in snooker.
Yep.
You've got to pot the golden ball as well.
OK, we'll pot you. Thank you, my friend. See you
Say no more. But I am a golden ball, of course.
You are the golden
20
ball.
past 8. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, stay with us. Still to come, making the news. Andy Jones and Dawn Neeson will be back. That's next, right here on Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
We're always told that there is a huge need for care workers in Britain. We're always told that the salaries just aren't big enough against the benefit system for British people to want to do that work. And there probably is some real truth in that. And yet, if up to 25% of those that come are acting illegally, and it would seem, up until now, that in some areas, foreign care workers come in, but bring in almost the same number of family members with them, that we need to have a proper debate about this. I'm very pleased to be joined by Mike Padgham, chair of the Independent Care Group. If I accept those arguments for a moment, how can it be that the system is so lax that up to 25% are found by the Inspector of Borders and Immigration to be working illegally?
Well, good evening to you, Nigel. It was good to join you. I mean, those figures are shocking to me. When I looked at it today, when I saw that 275 visas had been issued to a care home that didn't even exist, and a further over 1,000 people joined a company that only had previously 4 staff in it, it makes me wonder the bureaucracy of the Home Office didn't think to check that these companies exist in the first place, because it should be quite straightforward. If people are providing care that are regulated by the Care Quality Commission, it's a simple phone call to check and double check. Sadly, there seems to have been very many loopholes at the beginning. I believe that's been tightened now, but I can't understand it, because all the providers that are doing it in the proper way have to go through quite a rigmarole to actually get approved, and it takes months. So it beggars belief that this has happened and people have been approved for a company that doesn't even exist.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Dear God, here's one to talk about. Apparently, you can't get an appointment at your doctor's, right? So what do? You'll get an appointment with a doctor in Singapore. He'll be on a different time zone than you are, but he will be available. We've got Dawn Neeson, we've got Andy Jones to talk about this and more. Andy, what do you think about this idea?
Well, this is from a think tank, as all the worst ideas are from. And you can't get an appointment with your doctor, and so you can show your lumps and bumps to a health professional sat on a video chat in Singapore to ease some of our burden for waiting lists. Now, obviously, if you're absolutely desperate, you'll take a doctor in Singapore or Swahili or wherever else, so it doesn't really matter. But, again, it's removing, and we talked about this on this show previously, the fact that you don't see a doctor regularly, therefore it impacts care, it impacts his workload.
There's no difference doing this than there is seeing a doctor here by video link I mean, it's just still someone's opinion, someone's diagnosis.
You're right, but also I would argue, I'm obviously not a health professional, you can't fully diagnose somebody over video chat.
No, you can't.
And secondly, we talked in depth on this show the other day about the fact that you don't see the same doctor regularly. That creates extra work for the doctor, because every time you see a different doctor, he's then got to hear about all your whole system, your whole background, your whole...
So, Dawn, you're not convinced that you're getting the same attention from somebody on video, no matter if they're in...
It doesn't matter where they are in the world.
or Singapore.
I mean, most GPs will tell you that they diagnose so much more by being face-to-face to someone. They can see someone's demeanour, they can see...
Every appointment doesn't need that, surely.
Not every appointment, no.
There's a difference between something where you think you might have cancer or saying, I just want a repeat prescription of my contraceptive. I don't need to queue up for
No,
hours
not every appointment, but I do think it's important that we have face-to-face appointments. And the other thing with this story is, how much is it costing? Why can't we
Where's that money going? It's not being spent here in the UK.
Exactly.
Well, we won't be paying directly these doctors in Singapore. There'll be another firm who arranges it, and another firm, and there'll be all of these tiers of wasted money before we even get
it's
to the
just
doctor.
more waste where we're not paying our own system and our own people and strengthening...
Just sort the NHS out.
Well, that's not going to happen, and don't listen to any of them that say that it will happen. Let's talk about the most favourite pie in Britain, according to research, is what?
OK, right, what do you reckon it is, then?
Well... steak and ale. Or, steak and kidney.
Have you cheated, Isabel
Or steak
Webster?
and kidney. I swear I haven't. I just couldn't think of any other...
Yeah, she's been looking it up, hasn't she?
I couldn't think of anything other than a steak and kidney.
Then the right answer.
Right, yeah, exactly. She always gets the right answer. Come on. OK, yeah, so this is a survey that's been done by our... It's National Pie Week.
Oh,
it starts today.
Guilty about
Happy
that.
Pie Week.
Yeah.
Yes.
When's the last time you ate a pie, Dawn?
I don't like pastry and I don't eat meat. But you are right. Yeah, the number one pie is steak and ale, followed by chicken and mushroom, followed by steak and kidney, Cornish pasty, cheese and onion. No. OK, here's one for you. Goat's cheese and spinach.
How does cheese and onion work in a pie? I don't really understand that.
I don't do pies.
It's like
There's no dessert pies in that list either. What about apple pie?
You wanted an apple pie, didn't you?
I want a bit of custard with it. And also, no cottage pie or fish pie. Does a mashed potato top not count as a pie?
But this is
it's called a pie.
Pies.
You'd think that the pie people would be promoting a variety of pies.
I think this question should be asked in the House. I think rather than talking about tax, let's talk about pies.
I want diversity and inclusion in our pie game.
But there's a question off the back of this, which is Cornish pasties, right?
Yeah.
Apparently we eat them the wrong way.
What are you supposed to do with them? Oh, well, this is it. Apparently we're eating them the wrong way. We're supposed to hold the crust and then throw the crust away and then...
What?
Throw the crust away?
Yeah.
Well,
like
they were made for miners, weren't they? So you hold them with your dirty hands on the crust and eat the meat.
Yes, absolutely.
What are we doing? Are we people not doing that?
Well, they're eating the whole thing. Apparently you're supposed to throw the crust away.
Why? But they were designed so, as Isabel's just said, so workers could take them out and keep them going all day. That's why, they're quite high in calories. But a portable meal that you could eat for lunchtime while you're working out in the fields or down the mines, etc. So why did you throw a bit away?
The original lunchbox, the lunchbox that you can eat, because it's got all of it in there and then you literally eat the whole thing.
Andy, we need to know, why did you throw bits of it away?
Well, maybe that's because where your dirty hands have been touching.
Yeah. I suppose it's a little bit more slimming, isn't it, if you don't eat the pastry bit?
Oh. Do you think the average miner was thinking, got to watch me weight here?
Very health-conscious miner.
Well, now, before the last time you were on, we were talking about burglaries at home, and Andy, that so many were just going unsolved or uninvestigated. Shoplifting going the same way.
Yeah, you're not safe in your own home and you're not safe in the shops. So it's gone from 1.1 million to 5.6 million reported thefts in 1 year. With this, I find not only a five-fold increase in shoplifting, but also what I find most distressing as well is the 76,000 acts of violence against shopkeepers and shop staff. And so this is everything from sort of kids doing their first Saturday jobs, shopkeepers, security guards facing violence when they go to work purely to deliver us the food and the goods we need. They lay this explosion of crime and violence down to an increase in alcoholics and drug addicts going out and stealing things. But also, and this is what I found quite interesting, organised crime gangs stealing meat, alcohol and even sweets to order. So they're going out and they're saying, right, we need to go and get a bin bag full of Kit Kats or whatever. I assume the fancier, more designer sweets they're after. But they're going out and they're specifically targeting specific brands, specific products. And you'll see if you go into your supermarket, your chemist, certain brands are now beyond lock cabinets. And they've got a lot, you know, they've got locks on Lurpak butter and things down.
And yet, every time I step into a shop, I feel like I'm stopped, as if I'm a thief.
Yeah, do you need any help? Do you need any help? You're right there, you're right there.
Oh,
and they follow you around.
Going off, and I'm like, I've already removed myself all of the tags.
You do look a bit dodgy, Isabel, it has to be said. I'd be suspicious.
Like, I don't understand. There's an increase in kind of being accused of being a thief, but he's equally a decrease in the number of thieves.
It's the people that work in the shops that I feel sorry for.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones that are at the sharp end of this. And, you know, they're in danger. They're getting attacked, they're getting sort of assaulted, and they can't do anything about it. They're told literally just to stand and not do anything, not get involved. Yeah. They're watching people wheel trolleys of booze out, I mean...
And again, we're talking about no burglaries being convicted, you know, no charges for however many forces, shoplifting also not prosecuted. We're legalising theft and the violence that goes with it.
Terrible.
Well, all very, very sad to hear. Sorry about that. The guys are going to be back in about 40 minutes' time with more stories from the papers that are making the headlines on this Monday morning. Dawn, Andy, thank you both very much indeed.
Time now for an update on the weather with Greg Dewhurst with a little bit of everything on the way.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. We've got some frost around this morning, some dense fog patches too, leading to some tricky travelling conditions. And then all eyes on the west as the next weather system moves in. This morning, though, plenty of sunshine across the UK away from the southwest. Cold start to the day. This weather front slowly pushing north and eastwards through the day, coming into parts of southwest England, Wales and then Northern Ireland for the afternoon. Some of the rain could be heavy at times. The wind's picking up here too, but elsewhere staying dry. Plenty of sunny spells, though the sunshine turning hazy across eastern England by the afternoon. And temperatures, well, double figures for the vast majority, feeling a little warmer than the weekend. Into this evening time, this band of rain continues to push north and eastwards across the country, though it starts to weaken. Slows down across eastern parts of England, eastern Scotland here, giving a grey night with outbreaks of light rain and drizzle. Further west, some clear spells, but blustery showers quickly following on behind. Temperatures staying above freezing for everyone with generally more cloud around. So a grey start across eastern areas on Tuesday morning, bright further west, but blustery showers quickly moving their way eastwards. But the east should start to brighten up as we move through the morning into the afternoon as that weather system moves out the way. A few showers starting to bubble up as the temperatures rise. And for most of us getting into double figures by the afternoon. See you again soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Oh, we've got an important and we've got a live interview after the break. What is that, Isabel?
We'll be speaking to former Home Secretary Dame Priti Patel, who'll be here in person in the studio talking about this week's budget and perhaps her own ambitions to lead the party at some point. Stay tuned our way to find out all she has to say in just a moment right here on Breakfast with Eamonn.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Coming up to 8 o'clock, very nice to have you on board. It's Eamonn and Isabel here. This is breakfast on GB News, online, on your radio, on TV. You're very welcome.
And leading the news this morning, the budget countdown is on and a swathe of economic sweeteners are being detailed today. But will it be enough to win an election?
Yes, the Chancellor is desperately looking at ways to cut tax in the most dramatic way possible. But will his officials let him?
Right, live in the studio, the former Home Secretary, Priti Patel, in just a moment.
Given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire.
Well, despite early promises, ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas are in jeopardy this morning as the two sides fail to reach a truce.
20 past 8 this morning, with the Chancellor set to launch a raid on second homeowners. We're asking whether owning a second home is sensible or selfish.
Eamonn seems to be coming to terms with the fact that Manchester City beat Manchester United yesterday, which is good news. Well, you know what I mean. There's a huge game tonight. Arsenal are going to be playing bottom club Sheffield United, and the problems at Red Bull continue.
There's a cold, frosty, foggy start in places this morning, but we do have further wet and windy weather moving in from the west. Find out all the details coming up soon.
Right, look, here we have it. This is budget week. It's going to happen on Wednesday. It's the spring budget. It's also an election budget, with the Chancellor set to outline the government's economic agenda.
And speaking yesterday on Camilla Tominey's show right here on GB News, the Chancellor made it clear that this is an election budget.
Likely to be the last budget before the general election. But British people are very smart. They recognise gimmicks. They don't want any tricks. What they will get on Wednesday is a prudent and responsible plan.
Prudent and responsible. OK, that means dollars ditch water, basically. And despite remaining coy about what's set to be announced, what's he said? He said there might be something?
Well, I'd say he's managed expectations and said there might be some cuts in some areas, but also he might raise taxes in other places. So, in other words, folks watching and listening, this is not going to make one darn bit of difference to your life one way or the other. And I put it to the former Home Secretary, Dame Priti Patel, what is the point
go on, that'll be
of
funny.
Dame Pretty, because it's not going to win him the election.
And then we'll have to swap and sit on the sofa.
Why doesn't he just give the stuff away? Because he'll not be in charge anyway.
So, tempting though it might be, Eamonn, good morning.
Morning.
I think there are a couple of things here. Every Chancellor, and I was once many moons ago in the Treasury and I've been involved in 2 fiscal events, downplaying expectations is just part of the process, primarily because obviously there's a lot of market-sensitive information in the budget as well. So let's just give Jeremy Hunt that benefit of the doubt.
Well, we learned that, didn't we, the hard way with
So you're saying there may be something else, there may be a little surprise in this?
I'm hoping so.
Right.
Despite the doom and gloom that, is in the newspapers and I think has been briefed out and inevitably comes with the OBR. We haven't seen the OBR. All of that is going to be published this week. I take the view, and I've said this consistently, though, I do think the British people deserve more of their own money back. It's a fact. This isn't even a discussion point anymore. We have the highest tax burden in over 70 years.
Quick question. Why? Why do we have? Because we don't seem to be spending money on anything.
Well, we are. No,
but everybody's saying, every department, everywhere, no matter what it is,
teaching... spending a lot of our money.
But people are saying you're not spending enough. You're not spending it in schools. You're not spending it in the rail. You're not spending it in hospitals.
So, that's a different discussion. So, first of all, we are spending significant amounts of public money. We're at the highest level. Now, you've just said people are saying we're not spending enough. That's a different discussion because if the public want more public spending, then obviously taxes have to be higher. That's a choice that any government and every government has to make. I was in a government back in 2010, 2015 in the Treasury back then, when actually post-financial crisis, difficult choices and decisions were made. Welfare budgets were cut back. I was the minister that reduced the welfare budget by £12 billion. That's a drop in the ocean now to what our welfare spending is. So, these are choices that every government has to make. I take the view, and I think Jeremy Hunt was on Camilla's programme yesterday. He said that he's going to cut back the size of the civil service, which is at a record high. We have over 500,000 civil servants. Now, even to shave a degree off that would cut public expenditure by at least £1 billion, and that would be great. Back again in 2010, 2016, we had around 400,000 civil servants, and that saved a significant amount of money. The spending, the costs alone, I think, came down to something like £11 billion. Currently, the cost of the civil service is in excess of £17 billion. So you can see the cost differential there. This is where we have to be, again, to be an agile government that's fit in the sense of financially sound money, conservative principles, but actually making sure the public keep more of their money. That's the key
And that
thing.
was something that Jeremy Hunt very much reiterated yesterday, his belief that actually the countries with the best economies are taxed at a low level.
They are.
But he also says it's deeply unconservative to cut taxes in a way that increases borrowing and isn't fully funding. Do you want him to increase
I agree with
borrowing?
that, by the way.
OK, and so how...
We cannot keep borrowing, so the answer to this is we need economic growth. So what is so maddening, even if you read the papers today, where are the ideas about economic growth? And whatever one says about...
Liz Truss.
So whatever one says, there you go, nice segue about Liz, her tenure. She was pro-supply-side reforms. I think that's absolutely right. More housing, more infrastructure, investment and development. And the government needs to be agile about that, get the money into the country.
Well, they're doing a £360 million boost to British manufacturing R&D today. Is that going to cut it for you?
Well, we don't know, because you have to look at it over a significant period of time, right? No one knows what that's going to mean. How many more jobs is that going to create, for example? How's that going to grow the tax base? What does that mean for levelling up? Because in London and the South East, to be quite frank, the economy always does well. But what about other parts of the country?
Absolutely, absolutely. Why, could I ask you, are you being agile today? Right, now, you talked about Liz Truss. You mentioned Liz Truss's name. Are you, and I think I know the answer to this, are you a Sunak fan, or why are you positioning yourself here? You were a very capable Home Secretary. You were a very energetic Home Secretary. You had lots of ideas, and certainly luck didn't go your way. There's lots of things that didn't go your way with what you wanted to plan. How can anybody be any different? They're not coming forward with the ideas that you had, it has to be said. So, are you with Sunak, against Sunak? Are you standing for post-election? What's going on?
I want my party to win the next election, and I want to win with Rishi Sunak, quite frankly. You know, this is not about anything else. I don't want a Labour government. End of story. I'm a die-hard Conservative, and I want my party to be successful. And that is why Jeremy Hunter said this last budget before the general election.
But could I say
throw the kitchen sink at it.
Yes.
Have the vision and have the ideas that our country desperately wants to see.
But if I was Jeremy Hunt, I was sitting here, I'd be bribing people. I'd be buying votes. Why is he not? Are they too
because
frightened?
That's not legal in the sense of election.
But
I
to use
understand
that,
your point.
Yeah,
I do
but
understand
on that turn of phrase, I mean, Ken Clarke's come out in the papers this morning saying he's sick of all this talk of tax cuts as a way of buying people's votes.
Sure. And, well, you know, Ken is an old-school chancellor, and I grew up admiring the likes of Nigel Lawson. Now, you have to be over 50 to remember who the great Nigel Lawson was as a chancellor. But Ken Clarke, look at their stewardship of the economy. You know, that language of sort of tax cuts and, you know, buying votes, they were never in that place because they managed the economy responsibly. Now, Jeremy Hunt is doing exactly the same, but I do think we have to have the big picture. We have to look at economic growth. We do have to look at reducing the size of the state. It's an uncomfortable discussion. Nobody wants to say that. I don't hear Conservatives speak about that. Means we will scale back.
Return of austerity.
We will have to scale back some government spending.
But would you welcome because I know that you worked under George Osborne and you think he made difficult decisions. A lot of people talk about
they were the right choices.
So you would welcome austerity?
Well, I wouldn't say austerity because that was a different set of circumstances back then. We'd had the banking crisis. Things were, you know, we had our credit rating was all over the place, and quite frankly, the financial markets were not investing in the United Kingdom in the way in which, you know, we wanted our economy to be sound. What we now need, and this is difficult because you've got to balance the books. Debt spending is at an all-time high as well, debt to GDP. We need economic growth, but with taxes at a 70-year high, we have to look at fiscal drag, where more and more people are being caught in the tax trap, where they're paying more in taxation. And that is because those tax thresholds have been frozen, and we need to actually do more.
Well, there's a big appeal for that. A lot of people are saying that and get in touch with us today. But where we're spending money, Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, he's talked about defence. He hasn't got much money for defence and whatever. And I put it to you, and you haven't got an office to worry about. You may have lots of other things.
Sure.
But can you just tell me the truth? The war in Ukraine, we don't need it. Do we want it? Is it our war anymore? Have we paid enough for it? A lot of people would say the reason we haven't got money for our own defence forces is that we're spending money in Ukraine, for instance, and that money could go to the health service, it could go to schools, it could go to lots of things, it could go to the army, the navy, whatever. What about Ukraine? Where are we at?
Well, first of all, it's about the choices that any government chooses to make. And on Ukraine, I mean, I was in government at the time when the invasion of Ukraine took place. We were unequivocal about our support for Ukraine. And, you know, to be quite frank, I think we still are. I was involved in those choices, resettling Ukrainian families, women and children to the United Kingdom. I think that's a moral responsibility that we chose to take on. And I'd stand by that today. The issue is, though, Eamonn, how much longer is this war going to continue for?
Which leads to what? What difficult decision does that lead to? Does it lead to Hunt or whoever it is that follows him saying, look, guys, we've done our bit now?
I don't think so. I think we will continue, along with NATO and our allies, to give the support to Ukraine. I think that's the right thing to do. I think we are, you know, we're a leader, obviously, in NATO, but when we're head and shoulders in terms of the support that we give to our allies and to those countries that are standing up for Western values. I do think that's very important. If you vacate that pitch, then quite frankly, you know, you have to look at yourself quite morally in terms of where you stand in the world.
You talk about how you want the Conservatives to win and you want Rishi Sunak to win at the next election. The polls don't look like that's going to happen. You haven't ruled out standing as leader, possibly, in that scenario. Would that be something you would consider?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know, because, you know, I don't want to speculate about what will happen. I can tell you now, I spend every week...
You wouldn't rule it out?
Well, look, I spend every week travelling the country and supporting my colleagues. That's what good Conservatives do. I want us to win the election, and all my effort is focused on that, you know, helping colleagues, actually doing what we can at a national level as well. I speak in Parliament a lot, you know, on key bills and legislation. I want us to be successful. Rishi Sunak's success and the success of my party is also our national success, and really that's where we have to to be. And as for the polls, I mean, the polls are what they are, but quite frankly, anything could happen between now and a general election.
Yeah.
And I want us to win. That is my bottom line, it really
What's
is.
not happening is the migrant numbers coming down. Massive thing for you. You had very straight, clear ideas on this. I think the public supported you a lot. You weren't able to get a lot done because of lawyers and Rwanda and various things like this. What can be done? Can anything? Do you actually believe anything can be done?
I do.
What?
I absolutely do. I actually think, I mean, I found the whole issue very disappointing right now. We saw another tragedy yesterday, you know, in the Channel, which was just appalling, and I think it could have been prevented. I do think the French should do a lot more, quite frankly. We're paying them, I think, record sums of money. The sad thing is, I look back on all of this, we had a plan. We had a plan called the New Plan for Immigration, linked to the Rwanda policy, building Greek-style reception centres. And I'm sorry to say this, but people that came in afterwards, and in fact the current government didn't support that plan. And all we've seen with revolving door is people coming in with new ideas, and that doesn't embed, you know, with enough time, proper structural plans and structural reform that's required, including the lawyers, the legal profession. I put forward the one-stop shop, Eamonn, where basically you no longer see, or you shouldn't see, asylum seekers going back to the courts again and again and again, appealing their cases. That still hasn't been fully implemented. And I changed the law to make that happen.
Yeah, do you know what, Ms Patel? I just do not think, however angry people are about this, and people are angry and they're quite frightened as well, I just don't believe they know half of it. They don't know what is going on. I was in Belfast at the weekend and I said to somebody, let's go for a bite of lunch here. He said, oh, no, that hotel's not operational anymore. I said, what? And I named this hotel. I said, it's always been, my whole life, it's always been there. No, well, let's go here. That's not operational either. And we went 17 hotels in Belfast.
Extraordinary.
Have been commandeered for migrants. Now, we haven't had government there for 2 or 3 years, so which is part of the problem. But I just don't believe people have any idea what is happening to their lives. The Irish situation, you can come into Southern Ireland, you can head north. Once you get into Northern Ireland, you can head to Scotland, you can head to England, you can head to Wales. It's like unbelievable, uncontrollable. It's not just, everybody talks about what's going on at Dover and Calais and various things, but it's not just there. There are open doors all around the country, and I really just don't think people are even remotely aware. And when you talk about the housing situation, and I'm very big on social housing, getting social housing done and building the right amount of homes in the country, we'll never be able to do it. We will never be able to do it with the numbers of people that are coming in.
So I think, I mean, gosh, you've said so much there. You really have, and all of it is really important. I mean, when you look at, you know, Northern Ireland, Belfast, everything that's going on now, functional government, you know, we pray that everything comes together. But your fundamental point about, you know, our borders and where we are right now, this undermines public confidence. And this is, again, where the government needs to do more. We saw last week, I'm not sure this was a great thing, but quite frankly, we saw the publication of a range of reports criticising the Home Office, our borders. These reports were commissioned last year. They were damning, absolutely damning. I haven't read them all. I literally skimmed through a few of them. And there were some terrible things that were said in there. Now, the government could change a lot of things operationally. I used to do a lot of the operations in the Home Office. Things are never perfect, but you have to have high standards. You have to show that your border force officers are checking, they're doing the right thing, that they're being professional and diligent. I actually put forward a whole proposal to reform border force. All of that went in the dustbin when I left, which I thought was a real shame. This is where public confidence becomes undermined. And also, Eamonn, to your point, I don't think the public really understand the extent of what's going on, and therefore they feel uncomfortable about so many of these things that when they see something in the national newspapers, they think, God, that's terrible. And then, of course, it becomes a general point across the entire system, and then we're all damned.
I believe you're a straight talker. I do genuinely believe that you'll walk in and you say, look, this is what I want done. And when you meet with the French authorities, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that room, because you must just say, listen, Henri, here's the way we're going to do this. And then they say, oh, no, mademoiselle, no, or whatever. And I'm sure you have a bit of a set to with that. But when you left and when the new lot that took over from you did what they did, you haven't obviously been very praiseworthy of them. So what's the difference? What's the deal that's been done? Are they not bothered? Are they just stupid?
No, I don't think it's either of that. I mean, it's difficult, it's complicated. On migrant boats, I've always said there's no one single solution to this, and there isn't. There absolutely isn't. And I've heard all sorts of facile things, you know, just get in the channel and stop the boats, and that's just nonsense. You know, it leads to people losing their lives, and it's dangerous. There are things, we've changed our laws, so the things that can be done, very simply, implement those laws, basically. Implement the laws and literally work diligently to make sure the legislation has been passed. Institute the one-stop shop, work with the Lord Chief Justice, work with the immigration courts and tribunals system, make them efficient, stop migrants going to the appeals court again and again and again, which, by the way, costs a hell of a lot of public money. It eats into sit-in days of those courts and tribunal services, have deportations, remove people more swiftly once their cases fell, put them on a plane and remove them. And then, of course, we've got Rwanda. I have always maintained I actually do not believe that the government needed the legislation. We have ways in which you can overrule Rule 39. The government has said that they would do that. Rishi Sunak said he would do that when putting the bill towards Parliament. So just do the operational planning right now and start planning to get a plane to Rwanda. The Rwandan government are geared up for it. They already host over 100,000 migrants, by the way. So they're more than capable of doing this.
But none from Britain.
But we're arguing at the margins about, is Rwanda a safe country? When clearly it is, when they're hosting people from, you know, the EU-Libya transfer mechanism.
You have to take that up with the Supreme Court, though, don't you? They're the ones that said it wasn't.
Well, we're going to battle with them.
And we're almost out of time, but I just want to ask you about the issue of MP security. And I know that Jess Phillips was once targeted significantly in this way, and she's been talking about how on a Sunday night you would pick up the phone every week, 9 p.m, to call and check in on her, and how she said, aside from all party politics, she will never forget that. And she paid tribute to you as Home Secretary doing that. I don't know when you became an MP, but do you think there's more hatred in politics than ever before? I mean, we're hearing now there are 3 backbenchers that have round-the-clock 24-hour security. How has it got to this place, and how do we sort it?
So it's just in a different league, certainly. I became an MP in 2010. I think social media has a lot to do with it, to be honest. We use the term keyboard warriors. Death threats are just, you know, common now amongst all MPs.
Do you feel safe or less safe than you used to?
I'm very conscientious. There are things that I do, you know, around my own personal safety and security. I had 3 attempted assaults on me last year after I left being Home Secretary. And all of it was, you know, totally unprovoked by me, just people feeling that they had the licence to come up and be physically and verbally intimidating and threatening. That is just not acceptable. Now, I think Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, he deserves a lot of praise because he's done so much work behind the scenes, you know, around MP security. I've been privy to those conversations. I've worked with him. I know the things that he's done in the last 6 months as well. I'm afraid this is the reality of the country that we live in. I want our democracy to be free-flowing and, you know, I want us to be able to go around doing what we do. But I can say now, people do not speak as freely in Parliament as they do and would have previously on issues because they are worried. And they're not just worried for themselves, they're worried about their families.
Well, this is it,
and everyone that I speak to, I've had that as well. You know, our families are fearful and we have a responsibility to our loved ones as well to just be very conscientious and very diligent.
Well, Priti Patel, please stay safe. You're listening to the former Home Secretary there. Would she be a future Home Secretary? Would she be back in government? Would she not be? She's certainly very straight-talking. What do you think about what she's had to say today? gbviews@gbnews.com.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's get some reaction to that interview with our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, who was watching and listening from Westminster. Covered quite a range of topics. What did you make of that? I noticed she didn't rule out possibly being a leader of the Conservative Party in the future.
Well, absolutely. It feels at the moment as though there are almost no Conservative MPs who are willing to rule themselves out completely of being a leader after the next election. It's quite possible that Priti Patel would get quite a lot of support. What we heard there about her plan, what she would do for the economy, what her thoughts are on the current situation of taxes, was very interesting indeed. She said that Liz Truss was right about her supply-side reform ideas, growing the economy, boosting growth to be able to cut taxes. Now, that is an idea that goes down very well indeed with Conservative backbenchers. At the moment, we're heading into a budget, and you'll notice that Priti Patel there was pretty generous to Jeremy Hunt, as we would expect in the run-up to this budget. But what we're expecting from Hunt, he's essentially digging around behind the back of the sofa, looking for £9 billion to be able to cut taxes. Now, what it sounds like he's going to do is a 2p cut to national insurance. But to afford that, he'd have to bring in a load of stealth taxes, some of which don't sound very conservative at all. In fact, one of them, one idea that's on the table, is a cut to non-dom tax breaks. Well, that, of course, is Labour's big plan. Conservatives would be keen to take the wind out of Labour's sails on this one. But Priti Patel is keen to get taxes down. She's keen to grow the economy, and there are plenty of Conservative backbenchers who are right behind her.
And plenty of viewers, I have to say. Priti Patel for Prime Minister. What we need is Priti Patel back at the centre of British politics. Wish Priti Patel was PM. She's the only one that talks sense, whatever your Conservatives or Labour, says Barbara. Plenty of people liked what they heard this morning from Priti Patel.
Thank you, Olivia.
Olivia.
I think you'll like what you hear. Have a go. It's the Great British Giveaway, a new competition.
We're springing into spring and giving you the chance to win the seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won, plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package to enjoy, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, are you selfish if you own or want a second home? Or did I miss something? And are we living in a communist country where you're not allowed to have more than one home? I don't know. Let us know your views. We'll be debating that after this break.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Is a debate on gender really a far-right issue?
Far right. I'm so bored of that phrase, you know what I mean? Like, anyone who talks about... anyone who acknowledges that there are two sexes is suddenly far right, because that's what Hitler and Mussolini were all about. This question from Shirley is, of course, about Labour. They've been accused of being undemocratic because they pressured a pub into cancelling a debate, and this debate features Kelly J. Keane, who's been on this show a couple of times, and she's a campaigner, and she was just on the panel, and then they got a letter saying that they couldn't do it because Kelly J. Keane apparently attracts far-right groups. Now, they've tried this trick before, but because some awful, ghastly neo-Nazi types turned up near to an event that she was holding in Australia, they kind of tried to blame that on her and suggest that the two were the same thing. They weren't. That was an opportunistic group turning up to... They're not... Neo-Nazis aren't pro-feminist. They're not pro an event called Let Women Speak. That's just ridiculous.
New Zealand's TV blurred her touching her zip because they said that her touching her zip was a far-right dog whistle because she's making that symbol.
Yeah, but she wasn't making the symbol, she was just adjusting her zip.
Yeah, and also, this isn't a far-right symbol.
I mean, that was incredible because she obviously wasn't making that symbol anyway. She was just adjusting her top. But this New Zealand news channel blurred out the hand so that they could pretend that it was some horrible, ghastly... Yeah. I mean, this is stuff, isn't it?
She's talked about having voted Labour in the past. She's so not far right.
But also, even if she were right-wing, which she isn't, why would they be banning a panel where there's a discussion about one of the most important issues of our day? What are Labour playing at here?
They're anti-democratic, aren't they? They're just kind of playing whack-a-mole with things they don't like. I think maybe I'll write to the pub and say I do want to see Kelly J. Keane there.
Yeah, but they won't listen to you
well,
if
no,
you say that, will they?
Won't.
Because you've got the unfashionable opinion, Chris.
Well, I'm the unfashionable workplace.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Jeremy Hunt's got nothing to give away, but he's going to take more off you, right? So he's going to set up a tax on business airfares, for instance. Can't enjoy yourself. No, indeed. You can't even have a second home, can you?
No, exactly. So we're asking this morning whether that's fair. Perhaps he's going after some of his own vote electorate, or is it actually selfish to own a second home?
Well, let's find out now from author Rebecca Reid and top man broadcaster Mr. Michael Wilson there. And Michael, you indeed, as I understand it, have a second home.
We do. We got a place in South Africa, and it's something which I can assure all your viewers we saved up very hard for and buy it and enjoy it once a year. I think perhaps just as important is the fact that I grew up in a place called Scarborough, and Scarborough's on the northeast coast and is what's termed a holiday resort. Population outside the holiday season, I think when I grew up in it, sort of early 70s, about 40,000, with all the holidaymakers, about 100,000. Did people make money from holidaymakers? Yes, they did. Did people actually have second homes in Scarborough? Yes, they did. And did that also go into the local economy because all those people actually came to stay there? Yes, it probably, some of it probably did. The fact that the Chancellor's thinking about this, I'm sure there are some selfish people who've got second homes. There are also a lot of people who've got second homes by accident because they could have been left to them. If Granny dies, for example, and leaves her bungalow in a village near Scarborough, for example, like Caton, where holidaymakers will stay. Why shouldn't people stay in places like that? Now, I can understand a lot of people are very angry in places like Scarborough and Devon and the southwest, and also in the Lake District, to see properties which are effectively, as they see, empty most of the year. What's this tax? What is the reduction in tax going to give to the economy? About 300 million. Where does that fit within the 700 billion total tax case take of the country? Probably not a lot. I think it's unfortunate that they're doing this because what it shows is a bit of envy politics, quite honestly.
Oh, it's envy politics, Rebecca. Do you think that's true, or do you think there is a genuine crisis in some of these coastal towns where locals are frankly being priced out of the market by what are now very, very expensive second homes?
I think envy politics is an unhelpful way to form that thought. It's about communities, and it's about the fact that at the moment, if you grow up in a community, particularly a sort of seaside one, you are unbelievably unlikely to be able to buy a home near your family because the majority of those houses are bought as business propositions rather than homes. And I think there's a real problem in this country with people regarding property as investment rather than homes. But about 1 in 4 people in this country only 63% of people in this country own their home, which means that nearly 40% of people don't have a permanent untakeawayable roof over their heads. And that's not a good state of affairs. So the idea that anybody would want to hoard resources by owning more homes than they could possibly live in, while some people can't buy.
Are you genuinely suggesting that anyone who's lucky enough to have 2 homes should give it up because morally, you know, there are some people that don't have a first home? It's just a fact of life. Some people have more than others. And we don't live in a communist country where everything has to be shared out equally. That's just life, isn't it?
I just can't imagine being that selfish or gauche that I would want to own something that I can't use the majority of the time. And also, for me, the idea of wanting to not live somewhere, turn up when the weather's nice, when it suits me, take from that community and not invest anything, not give anything back, these communities, particularly places like Blakeney and Burnham Market in Norfolk, that have voted to try and prevent people from doing so, they explain that people very often arrive on a Friday night, they bring their own supermarket shopping, they come down, they don't buy anything, they don't contribute anything, nobody's on the PTA, their children aren't going to the primary school, nobody's helping out with the local the Heat of the Countryside tidy movements.
Okay.
They're just coming, consuming and leaving, and I think that's ghastly.
Michael, you're gauche.
Well, Michael, I think they're also going to get to a stage whereby you work hard to have a second home, and now you're going to have to work harder to enjoy it because you're going to be taxed on it.
Yeah, you are. I mean, what happens at the moment is that you're allowed a certain percentage off the tax that you actually pay on the earnings from a second property. But that so said, I mean, yeah, I think the community question is actually quite a strong one. I think the question you have to ask, though, is would the price of those properties actually therefore decrease, and would they become more affordable? And thus, are they filled up by people who actually want to live in those kind of places? And thus, as my protagonist actually says, yeah, sure, maybe they do sit on the PTAs, maybe they do contribute towards the community. I suspect those prices would not come down. I see no evidence of that at all. I mean, the sort of places, there's still people who want to retire and live by the seaside or live in the Lake District. Those are the kind of people that keep the prices up, and they are not necessarily people who have second properties.
Guys, we've got to leave it there. Thank you both very much indeed for raising the discussion and talking it through with us. People at home will have their views. GB News at GBViews at gbnews.com. We've got Paul Coit. He's got the sport next, and he's got birthdays, famous birthdays.
I have one big one for you.
A big one.
It's one, and you got to guess how old they are.
OK, see if you can guess that next.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
We're always told that there is a huge need for care workers in Britain. We're always told that the salaries just aren't big enough against the benefit system for British people to want to do that work. And there probably is some real truth in that. And yet, if up to 25% of those that come are acting illegally, and it would seem up until now that in some areas foreign care workers come in but bring in almost the same number of family members with them, that we need to have a proper debate about this. I'm very pleased to be joined by Mike Padgham, chair of the Independent Care Group. If I accept those arguments for a moment, how can it be that the system is so lax that up to 25% are found by the Inspector of Borders and Immigration to be working illegally?
Well, good evening to you, Nigel. It was good to join you. I mean, those figures are shocking to me. When I looked at it today, when I saw that 275 visas had been issued to a care home that didn't even exist, and a further over 1,000 people joined a company that only had previously 4 staff in it, it makes me wonder the bureaucracy of the Home Office didn't think to check that these companies exist in the first place, because it should be quite straightforward. If people are providing care, they're regulated by the Care Quality Commission. It's a simple phone call to check and double check. Sadly, there seems to have been very many loopholes at the beginning. I believe that's been tightened now, but I can't understand it, because all the providers that are doing it in the proper way have to go through quite a rigmarole to actually get approved, and it takes months. So it beggars belief that this has happened and people have been approved for a company that doesn't even exist.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews at gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
talked about yesterday's football results. We don't need to talk about them anymore. We're looking ahead to tonight. Who's playing tonight, Paul?
Sheffield United versus Arsenal. I mean, Sheffield United have had a terrible time. They're bottom of the Premier League, and you've got Arsenal, and there's, I think, 15 goals they've scored in the last three
games.
Premier League
5
games.
goals a game.
That's not bad going, is it?
And Sheffield United probably conceding 5 goals a game.
I know, this could be a cricket score. And if it is, then I probably won't talk about it too much tomorrow. But I expect Arsenal are going to score a lot tonight. But then it's a funny old game, as someone said. You never know. You know, Sheffield, Arsenal may be going out there and thinking, oh, we're going to walk this, it's going to be easy. Captain Black's going to think this is absolutely no problem. He's sending all the circles over Bramall Lane pitch, and then Sheffield United may pull something out of the bag.
Yeah,
you never know.
What's happening Formula One-wise? We had the Bahrain Grand Prix yesterday.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to try and keep this as quick as I can, but Max Verstappen, he wins the Bahrain Grand Prix. His dad, Jos, who is with him all the time. Can you imagine just having your dad with you the whole constantly?
Well, Lewis was the same. Lewis Hamilton's
yeah,
got
I
his
guess
dad.
so. But Jos is very outspoken, and it seems that the problem is the power struggle. It's been between Jos Verstappen and Christian Horner. They don't get on. There was film of them having an argument.
Even though they're winning.
Well, this is the thing. They're winning, and they continue to win, but that's not enough, and it seems to be power. Now, there's all the problem with the text, whether we call it Textgate or whatever was going on with Christian Horner, and whether his job would be untenable, but it seems that Jos Verstappen has now said that he doesn't want him to be in charge of Red Bull. Now, he's then saying, well, maybe we'll go, because there's a seat at Mercedes that was Lewis Hamilton's, and Jos Verstappen is very good friends with Toto Wolff, who it sounds like the old TV show Soap. Do you remember? If you think you know what happens. But this is how it's going. It's like this crazy merry-go-round. So the only people probably rubbing their hands together is Netflix for that new series of Drive to Survive.
No, you did say to his famous birthdays, famous sporting birthdays.
Got a good one for you.
OK.
King Kenny. Have a look.
Dalglish, yeah.
Kenny Dalglish, birthday today, and then we've got some pictures of Kenny.
I would say...
There he is, there we are.
I would say
78.
I'd say
78.
I'd say 75.
75? I'm going to give you a guess each because you're both wrong. Go again.
OK, 74.
74. Yeah. Look at that. It actually says Liverpool FC star Kenny Dalglish turned 73 today. It's going to be the worst quiz show ever where we give the answer before.
I only said that because his kid's the same age as me, and I just thought, what age are my folks?
There.
See, that's not his daughter, Kelly.
No, that's his wife.
That's Marina.
Oh, it's Marina.
Marina.
Aquamarina.
Aquamarina.
Is that Aquamarina?
Yeah. And she is. She's a wonderful woman.
Stunning.
King Kenny, though, one of the greatest footballers, without doubt, Celtic, and then over to Liverpool and Scotland, and what a fantastic player and manager as well.
He's very good company. Very good company to be in. I've played golf with him.
You played golf with Kenny?
Yeah. And I've, you know...
Hold on, does he need to win, though? I bet he needs to win, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah?
He said to me before the golf game, he said, no, I'll tell you this. So I don't know what he told me.
Yeah.
But he did tell me.
You didn't understand him, he didn't understand you.
No, what he said is he doesn't talk football. He doesn't talk football during it. So he talks... He's a very funny man. Very, very funny man. Wow. Very good man to be with.
How did you get on, by the way, in the game?
Oh, I'm useless. Yeah, I know. You look good to me.
But did it get uncomfortable?
I do look the part. Sometimes I look at myself and say, you really look the part, Eamonn. People think you are the part. But
swinging the club around. Yeah, nice.
Well, wear the right jumper and you've got it all.
Yeah, halfway there. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
All the gear, no idea?
Well, that's it. That's absolutely believe in that. Right, we'll take a break.
Yeah, after that, Making the News, Dawn Neeson, Andy Jones will be right here with all the latest. See you in a moment.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, I'm no fan of Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party. I admit to voting for them because, frankly, Jeremy Corbyn simply wasn't an option. I thought Boris was hounded out of office in an unsavoury manner, a leader who gave them an 80-seat majority. Their treatment of his predecessor, Liz Truss, was abhorrent. The Parliamentary Party unceremoniously dumped her for Rishi, a move which appeared premeditated, and they've shuffled the ministers around like a carousel. Frankly, it's embarrassing. It would also be fair to point out that they've had a pretty unfortunate run of circumstance over the last few years. while giving the country a referendum on Brexit was of their own making, and I believe was the right thing to call. They've had a global pandemic, which arguably bankrupted the country, causing a cost of living crisis and rising inflation, which was exacerbated by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the latter the breadbasket of the world, the former an oil-rich nation, which meant that the cost of food and fuel rocketed. And now we're dealing with a conflict in Gaza. And at the end of this month, we have another doctor strike. We've just had to increase the pay of consultants who are earning over 100 grand because their wage has not gone up with inflation. Welcome to the real world. Honestly, I mean, whose wage is guaranteed to go up with inflation in the private sector? We have to fight for our pay rises or get another job. And apparently, Keir Starmer, this is the latest, within his first 100 days wants to tear up the laws that rein in the power of union chiefs. And he wants to bin the new laws for minimum service levels for schools and hospitals and railways. The hard left, who dominate these unions, have huge collective bargaining power and can bring this country to its knees, ordering workers to down tools.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Thank you, everybody who's been in touch for Priti Patel's appearance on our programme this morning. Very popular, I'd say, Isabel.
Yes, I'd say so too. Lots of people saying, well, agreeing with what she said, wishing she was leader already. I love Priti Patel. She is the most sensible woman I know, says Donna. She needs to be running the country, as she's got the guts, the backbone, and isn't afraid to take on the government. Also, she's right. The Conservative Party need to stand united.
John says I'd vote for her if she was leader of the Conservatives, but a lot of you just very appreciative that she seemed to speak straight. OK? We're now going to get some straight talking now from the former editor of the Daily Star and the Don Neeson and writer and journalist Andy Jones. Very good to see you both.
Should we start with some royal stories? Front page of The Sun is probably a bit of a nightmare for the Middletons. Not only are they dealing with Catherine being unwell and all of the speculation about that, but now Carol's brother, Catherine's uncle, is set to join the celebrity Big Brother house, and they are all very worried about what
you would be,
say.
wouldn't you?
Why does he need to do this? He sold his business for £17 million.
I mean,
he's loaded.
I think he's just one of those characters. A big celebrity Big Brother starts tonight, and there's 12 celebrity housemates going in, of which Gary Goldsmith is one of them, as you've just said. He is Kate, and we still don't know what's wrong with Kate. She's still recovering from her surgery. Her uncle, but he's always been described as the black sheep of the family. He's had 4 wives in the past. He lived in Ibiza for a while. I remember the name of his villa, but I'm not going to say it.
Go on.
What was it?
I don't know.
Villa Bang Bang or something or other. Yeah, something like that. So he's lived a bit of a life, shall we say. And Kate Middleton, according to The Sun, is furious that he's going in there because she's terrified he's going to say something untoward, especially with Kate recuperating from her surgery, which we still don't know what it is. I mean, is he going to let that sort of family secret slip? And he's also been very, very vocal about Harry as well. The fact that Harry has upset Catherine and, you know, has had a go at Harry. And so she's also frightened that he's also going to go more and more on the anti-Harry and Meghan line as well. But to be honest with you, it's going to be worth watching.
It'll be a ratings boost, which is why they've probably
that's why,
absolutely. Huge fee.
Yeah, there's some quite good names going in there as well, so including Sharon Osbourne, who's been paid £100,000, evidently.
She's only going in for a week, though, isn't she? Is that right? A little visit and then out, 100 grand?
You would, wouldn't you?
Yeah. What was I going to say to you? Royal Matters, the Queen, though, we're hearing, is heading off on holiday, and I'm just not sure this is the right visuals on this one. If this, she should be seen when everybody's ill and her husband's under treatment and whatever. Anybody else have a view on that story?
Camilla?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been filling in for a few weeks and she's gone on holiday now, and there's a slight question mark about her durability, but... slightly more positive news I wanted to flag up. King Charles is expected to be visiting Australia later on in the year, which, regardless of whether you're a royal or Joe Bloggs, travelling to Australia is a serious undertaking. So he must have had some sort of positive uptick in his diagnosis and his treatment.
Do we know when that is, Andy?
Later in the year. I think they probably have nailed down a date, but it's I've not cast my eye over it.
I
It's in the
noticed
Times
that
today.
the story says Australia's continuing to make plans, but there's no suggestion Buckingham Palace is doing. From the royal correspondents I've spoken to, there's lots of question marks about whether that will happen or any of the tours that William and Catherine will be going on, which they're disappointed about because they have a royal tour.
It's come out of the mouth of Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, so you'd have thought they'd at least checked back with the Royal House, but who knows anymore these days?
I mean, Camilla's in her 70s, so I don't blame her for taking a break, to be honest with you.
But go on.
Who's left holding the reins? I mean, we saw Andrew leading the royal family into King Constantine's memorial the other day, which was slightly like, ooh.
Yeah. Look, Eamonn and I both are big fans of Queen Camilla. We think she's wonderful, and we think she's a very great, supportive partner for the king.
You know, I do.
But I don't remember the late Queen ever saying, I'm off on a girls' holiday, let alone at a time when Philip was ill or whatever it might be. I do think that maybe she should have postponed it until everybody's a bit better, given that there's not that many people still...
But there's not a lot when you've got Andrew leading the royal
I accept she's
pack.
in her 70s and needs a break, but the optics of it, bit tricky.
Do we need a bigger royal family rather than a slimmed-down one?
so.
I mean, if we're down to Andrew...
Just give everyone a go. Everyone gets their day to be a royal.
But, Andy, I tell you what, there are a lot of commitments. There really are, and they're very minor commitments as well, which just need somebody to call and shake hands, cut a ribbon, whatever, and there are not enough people to go round. So, although it looks good, Charles saying, oh, let's cut this down, it'll not be a drain on the public purse, whatever, people generally want to meet a royal. They want to meet somebody important. For God's sake, they want to meet me and Isabel. They want, they just want people to turn up and recognise what they do.
I mean, can you imagine if you needed ribbon cutting and Andrew turned up?
And also for trade as well, obviously, the Middle East, when we send royals over there, it does us a lot of financial good to have someone in our corner over there meeting people.
I'm Team Princess Anne. I mean, she works hard enough as it is, but, I mean, she's actually a royal you can respect.
Right. Participants in a major nature study agreed to be surveyed over their mental health while they counted insects. Dawn, tell us more.
You know what? Andy and I have scoured the papers for good news stories and some happy, feel-good, fluffy... Stop shaking your head at me, Andy.
There are any good news stories.
And this one is chasing down butterflies can reduce anxiety and help stress. Every year we have a big butterfly count in July and August. And researchers from the last one sent a survey out asking about people who talk about their mental health. And it's come back to say that the people that were doing it, all it involves is spending 15 minutes in a nice sunny spot out in the countryside or in your garden just counting how many butterflies and insects you can see. Simple. But it's the people that responded to surveys at a 9% reduction in anxiety. So it's just a nice thing to do, just to sit in a nice, warm, sunny place and look at insects and butterflies.
Well, I have to say, I couldn't tell you. I'm not sure if this is the time of the year to see butterflies or not, but I couldn't tell you the last time I actually saw a butterfly. Is this the time of the year for butterflies?
No, it's summer, July and August.
All right.
And we do. I mean, we're quite getting into it now. We go for lots of long walks, which the husband hates, but I encourage him. And we see lots of butterflies now.
Yeah.
Anything to get you away from a screen. Happiness is getting away from a screen, away from social media and getting out there, lungfuls of air.
touching the ground. It sounds a bit weird and hippie-ish, but I'm just starting on a vegetable patch. There's something very basic about getting soil between your fingers and grounding yourself in a world, as you say, screens and stress and all of this stuff, and getting back to basics and feeling better for it.
Saving a few quid too.
Yeah.
So, did you ever? Where do you stand with Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Francis Drake, Andy? This is a story of a school whereby the head teacher removed their names from school buildings. Where do you stand on this?
So Exeter School in Devon has removed the names of Sir Francis Drake and Sir Walter Raleigh, as they had them on buildings and as part of school houses within their school. They've said that they are no longer representative of what the school is about. This is because Sir Francis Drake was the first Brit to circumnavigate the globe. Apparently he was a slaver and he kept slaves at different points. And Sir Walter Raleigh, who famously defeated the Spanish Armada when the Spanish had the best boats in the world, he's now considered a coloniser.
Oh.
So just think what we're going to be criticised for in the future.
It's like those two girls who vandalised a bust of Queen Victoria over the weekend. Did you see that?
Threw porridge all over it.
It looked like jam, but what was it? And
then they wrote a very, very vile, offensive word on it as well. I thought, you spoiled, entitled little...
But their knowledge of these things only comes from looking at the Wikipedia page. And the moment they see slavery or colonised or visited Africa or something, it's immediately a cross in the box for banish this memory whatsoever. But we only learn from history if we take the good and the bad. You know, we cannot have this sort of blind view that, history is always wonderful.
Yeah.
Learn from our mistakes of the past and make sure we don't do them again. But we need to learn. And we also need to recognise the good that a lot of people in the past did as well.
And see them in the context of the time.
Exactly.
Not judge them by modern values.
Yes.
Things have changed. As you say, we've learnt lots. Can we talk about this story, Dawn? This is in the Mail Online, and this is about a migrant who made it to the UK illegally and has had such a horrid time, they want to go back to France, I believe.
Hurrah! Yeah, this is the Mail Online have got a paywall now, so you have to pay to see this story. This is a chap called Mohamed Boumata from North Africa. He arrived in July after buying a £1,000 place on one of the boats crossing the Channel. Arrived in Dover. It's not basically the land of milk and honey he was promised by the traffickers, and he is now penniless and homeless. And just wants to go. So he's now considering whether he can pay people smugglers to smuggle him back to France.
Yeah, he's talking about... In the article, he talks about hanging around Dover trying to get into a lorry. And you thought there was a sort of scheme that we'd go, look, instead of paying you benefits, we will just pay you the flight back.
Yeah. We can't put people on planes to Rwanda. He'd be volunteering to be the first on there. What is wrong with this system?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Meanwhile, foreign hate preachers face deportation. Andy, tell us why in 40 seconds.
In 40 seconds, exactly what you've said on the tin. Preachers of hate facing being kicked out of Britain in latest crackdown. The government's obviously had huge kickback on the way we've maybe allowed so many of these hate preachers during the Gaza, Palestine, Israel conflict to say absolutely deplorable things about Britain, things that would get you arrested if you said them outside of a religious facility, and yet some of these hate preachers are allowed to say X, Y and Z, and we're promising now to crack down on them.
Why weren't we doing it before? Hello?
These laws were already there.
OK. Andy Jones, thank you very much indeed. Dawn Neeson, appreciate it. Thank you for your input this morning.
Here's Greg with the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. We've got some frost around this morning, some dense fog patches too, leading to some tricky travelling conditions. And then all eyes on the west as the next weather system moves in. This morning, though, plenty of sunshine across the UK away from the southwest. Cold start to the day. This weather front slowly pushing north and eastwards through the day, coming into parts of southwest England, Wales and then Northern Ireland for the afternoon. Some of the rain could be heavy at times. The wind's picking up here too, but elsewhere staying dry. Plenty of sunny spells, though the sunshine turning hazy across eastern England by the afternoon. And temperatures, well, double figures for the vast majority, feeling a little warmer than the weekend. Into this evening time, this band of rain continues to push north and eastwards across the country, though it starts to weaken. Slows down across eastern parts of England, eastern Scotland here, giving a grey night with outbreaks of light rain and drizzle. Further west, some clear spells, but blustery showers quickly following on behind. Temperatures staying above freezing for everyone with generally more cloud around. So a grey start across eastern areas on Tuesday morning, bright further west, but blustery showers quickly moving their way eastwards. But the east should start to brighten up as we move through the morning into the afternoon as that weather system moves out the way. A few showers starting to bubble up as the temperatures rise. And for most of us getting into double figures by the afternoon. See you again soon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Welcome back to Headliners. And Paul, we're going to get straight into Monday's mail for some good old-fashioned traditional male breastfeeding.
Yeah. To answer the question, what is the latest woke hell, Josh? Row as hospitals say hormone-filled milk from trans women who were born male is just as good for a baby as the real thing. It's possible for men, if they pump themselves full of estrogen, to grow larger breast tissue, and they often do.
Or you just eat lots of burgers.
Exhibit A. And once you've done that, it is actually then possible to express or lactate a liquid. Okay. If to that liquid you then add another load of pills, medication, chemicals, whatever, that lactation juice can be fed to a baby.
We don't really... This is not for the sake of the baby. The baby has no benefits from this whatsoever. The studies are very weak on it. It's a bit worrying because, you know, when hospitals started indulging in homeopathy and having, the NHS had homeopathic hospitals, that was worrying because they're supposed to be a trusted authority. And before saying something like this, there should be an awful lot of study done.
I want to shame this hospital. This is
whether it's necessary.
University Hospital Sussex NHS Foundation Trust. That's who it is. And they have written one of the stupidest sentences that I have read aloud in the 2 years that I've been privileged to do this show. It says, the term human milk is meant to be neutral and not gender biased.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Oh, my God, we're laughing at you.
I mean, and as someone says here, babies are not props. And that's the scary thing. And when we're not focusing primarily on the health of a baby.
No, but the feeling of a person doing it rather than... It's a bit of an odd way to go, isn't it? So...
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Well, to cut a very long story short, I was the chaplain in a school and a pupil asked me to preach on how come they were told they had to accept the LGBT stuff in a Christian school. I thought that was a fair question. So I said, ultimately, no, you don't have to accept anybody else's ideas. You make up your own minds. And so on topics like the marriage being...
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's fast approaching 9 o'clock. It's Monday, the 4th of March, and you're very welcome to Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
However you're watching, however you're listening, or remember your device, you just say play GB News and we will be there. And here's what we'll be telling you. The budget countdown is on as a swathe of economic sweeteners will be detailed today. But the question is...
will it be enough to win an election? Earlier we spoke to the former Home Secretary, Priti Patel.
Party to win the next election, and I want to win with Rishi Sunak.
Well,
That's right, it's budget week here in Westminster, and the talk is, can a Tory Chancellor cut taxes in a recession? What can he afford? We'll find out very shortly.
The immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire.
on a ceasefire. Israel and Hamas are in jeopardy in those negotiations as the two sides fail to reach a truce.
After holding the fort over the past few weeks, Queen Camilla is set to take a break. So who will be leading the royals? We're going to be talking about that with our royal commentator in the studio very shortly.
There's a cold, frosty, foggy start in places this morning, but we do have further wet and windy weather moving in from the west. Find out all the details coming up soon.
Budget spending. It's going to happen on Wednesday. Michael says this Wednesday's budget's nothing more than a vote-buying attempt. I tend to disagree on that, my friend. They don't seem to be buying anything. Peter says $4.5 billion we spend on illegal migration doesn't help. Michael says, I don't see this budget being any different than any other. Give with one hand and take it back with the other, which is more or less about right. Yeah. So the countdown to the spring budget has begun. It is on Wednesday. The Chancellor set to outline the economic agenda.
And speaking to Camilla Tominey yesterday here on GB News, the Chancellor made it clear that this will be a special election budget.
Likely to be the last budget before the general election. But British people are very smart. They recognise gimmicks. They don't want any tricks. What they will get on Wednesday is a prudent and responsible plan.
No tricks, no gimmicks, but will it be enough? Well, earlier in the programme, we spoke with the former Home Secretary, Priti Patel, about her own economic agenda.
We cannot keep borrowing, so the answer to this is we need economic growth. So what is so maddening, even if you read the papers today, where are the ideas about economic growth? And whatever one says about...
Liz Truss.
So whatever one says, there you go, nice segue about Liz, her tenure. You know, she was pro-supply-side reforms. I think that's absolutely right. You know, more housing, more infrastructure, investment and development. And the government needs to be agile about that.
Well, joining us now is our political editor, Christopher Hope. Good morning to you, Christopher. We're going to be hearing a lot over the next few days. I don't know about you, what you made of the Chancellor yesterday. He looked like a man with the weight of the world on his shoulders. How many last-minute decisions do you think he'll be making, and how much will he be listening to a lot of the commentary today in the wake of those interviews that he did yesterday before he finally signs off on what we can expect on Wednesday?
Well, morning, Isabel. Exactly right. Yeah, we heard last night, didn't we, how we heard he was definitely talking a good talk to Camilla Tominey in the GB News studio, but he's very keen to cut taxes. He knows that's the Conservative way. The problem he's hemmed in by anemic growth. We are technically in a recession, and that's why it's very hard to try and cut taxes. That's normally the way to try and gee up the Tory backbenches. The question here, if there is one, is 2p or not 2p? That is the question, in the sense that do you cut 2p off national insurance, 1p off income tax? It's looking like he wants to go towards, in the language that we're hearing about helping workers, cutting national insurance, that tax that we have taken out of our PAYE if you're employed by an employer. That looks like what may happen, and that may cost as much as $9 billion. He's got about $12.5 billion to play with, according to the Office of Budget Responsibility. That's called the fiscal headroom in technical terms. That leaves about $3.5 billion left, unless he increases taxes elsewhere. And what may go up is taxes on business travellers, on airfares, and also they may try and remove tax breaks from those having second homes. Other areas we could see the scrapping in the non-dom tax status. Don't forget, Akshata Murthy, the wife of Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, is a non-dom, and she pays a fee she could technically not be paying taxes in this country, but she does voluntarily pay tax on her global earnings in the UK after agreeing to do so. But there's many more who have that. So, yeah.
OK, Christopher, thank you very much. There'll be a lot to get into on that this week. We appreciate your take this morning. But for now, we're going to turn to all matters royal. The Princess of Wales's uncle, Gary Goldsmith, is set to make an appearance on the latest season of Celebrity Big Brother, which starts tonight. What do you reckon the Middletons make of that?
Who watches it? I don't know. Does anybody watch it?
Certainly the tabloids will be watching it with interest.
Well, The Sun are reporting on this this morning, and they're saying drama in the Middleton household with claims he has been read the Riot Act by Kate's parents, Carol and Michael Middleton.
Well, joining us now to discuss this and all of the other royal news is royal biographer Angela Levin. Goodness me, Angela, this is the last thing that the Princess of Wales needs, surely, when she's recuperating from abdominal surgery. Lots of question marks and, indeed, rumours about how she's doing, to have the stress of her uncle possibly blabbing on national television.
Yes, I think it's the most terrible thing to do, and I think it's nonsense when people say he'll only say anything that's nice about Catherine and William. He won't say anything that's not nice. That's not quite the point, or understanding what he's going in for. They don't want him for his own personality, because none of us, exactly, you may well laugh, none of us are interested in him. But what he then says about his family, that's what they want. And because they leave the mic on
all the time,
24 hours a day,
yes,
he can slip and he can say something about her because he's not used to being on the television.
I'm not sure he'd know anything about her health condition. I mean, we would all have cousins and things, and we wouldn't know what goes on in their lives, nieces or nephews or whatever. But the potential exists for him to say something indiscreet about any aspect of the
of her life. Yeah. Well, any aspect about her, any comment, any sentence will be very hurtful. And that's what's so appalling. And he doesn't need the money. He's been a millionaire. He doesn't need to do it. He wants to do it because he's fed up with the rest of his family being in the spotlight, and he wants the spotlight. And the one thing they don't want is for him to do that. They know he's always been a black sheep of the family, but I think it's really cruel. I've been hoping that he'll actually change his mind at the last minute and get a bit nervous and then say, actually, I don't feel well, I can't do it.
But finally, something that Kate and Meghan have in common is these wayward relatives that blab to the media. Perhaps they can bond over that.
Yes. Well, a lot of people have that one person in the family that make it very hard for them, and they don't want to ignore him completely because they are members of the family, but on the other hand, they want them to shut up.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we have got the Queen, as in Queen Camilla.
Yes.
The news is she's going on holiday, Angela. You know what? I have nothing against politicians going on holiday or the Queen in this situation, except the timing just does not seem good on this.
My view of that is that King Charles insisted that she had a break. She's working non-stop. She's done so much in this last week. She's also been there for him all the time. And if I think it's a sign that he might have improved quite well, and he'll say, why don't you take a break? Some people say she's going to spend it with her children and with Charles, and some say she's going, say that she might be going to India, although she hates flying, because there's a marvellous spa there. She's been there several times before, and they can give her the one over in 2 days and she can come back a new woman. It's very good, and she's been there before and she absolutely loves it. But she would not do this unless the King said to her, I know you're really tired. Please, you can't keep this up. Go away. She'll be back by next week when she's doing an engagement on Saturday.
So you see it as a sign that his health is doing well, and we've also heard, haven't we, over the weekend, doing better, that Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister in Australia, is preparing for King Charles to go ahead with his tour of duty in the autumn.
Yes.
So perhaps that's another indication that behind the scenes, word's getting out that the King's doing well.
I think it's another indication that we feel optimistic. I don't think that you can actually think about November, I think it's October, November. I don't think you can actually not plan it. But on the other hand, you can't, you have to wait and see. But I know he really wants to do that. Obviously he does. It's very important for the Commonwealth. And let's hope that he is well enough to do it. But it's a very long journey, isn't it?
Yeah, and there are a lot of royal responsibilities to be filled in on. And we get to the situation where, when it comes to handing out honours, who does it? Where are we at with those?
Well, this is absolutely fascinating. For the first time, they might allow women who do not have royal blood to give the honours. That's the knighthood and all the rest that comes.
So Camilla, Kate?
Well, Camilla and Kate, once she's better, they're thinking about perhaps they can do that. That will ease it for the King and for William and for Princess Anne. But it will also mean that, you know, they deserve it. It's also a thank you for all their hard work and their staying so proud of the royal family.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? I think if you're, able to be queen of the country, you should be able to bestow honours upon people.
I think it's very interesting that it's not, they've been so keen of royal blood. That's all that matters. But now they're spreading out that actually it's sensible to have people who do a lot of work and don't mind. And I can imagine that people who come, it's always an excitement, but they'll be delighted that Camilla does it.
Yes.
They'll be thrilled to bits if Catherine gives them something on there.
I got Queen Elizabeth II.
Did you?
So we did, yeah.
Yes. I bet you were thrilled to bits.
I was thrilled to bits. I was absolutely thrilled to bits.
You deserved it, so...
I got a lovely photograph taken with her. She said to me, Eamonn, come on, get a selfie here. And we sat there and she took my phone and she did a selfie, the two of us.
She did?
Yeah.
I don't
Angela, come on.
I don't believe
Don't spoil the story, Angela. Thank you very much indeed, Angela. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Coming up, 5:30, not much longer to wait. Britain's newsroom with Andrew and Bev, who are waiting in the wings, itching to tell us what they've got coming our way.
I didn't believe that story about the Queen herself.
Well, I didn't know about the royal blood to give a gong. That was fascinating. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We're talking about George Galloway, mired in controversy even before he gets to the Commons, because David Davis, the Tory MP, was supposed to be one of the MPs introducing him. He's pulled out because his deputy, Chris Williamson, has said terrible things about Israel and won't condemn Hamas for the invasion of Israel. So even before he's arrived, there's controversy. So the father of the house, Sir Peter Botting, will have to step in, which will put him in a difficult position because that is a convention of the House. A new MP has to be embraced by two MPs. Yeah, and the other one is going to be Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, amazing.
So that's happening today. So we're going to be leading up to that. It's National Obesity Day as well. We're going
Pointless.
to be
Pointless gimmick.
Talking to a nutritionist about why that is the situation. Is it the government's job? Is it our own?
So how do they do that? What word do they use? Did they use the word obesity or did they use fat day?
Well, you can't call them Fat Day, can you? But we'll ask them about that because why can't we call people fat if they're fat?
So we're going to be also Labour's plans to get young people who aren't in education or employment. Liz Kendall is going to be announcing that this morning. We're going to see what Labour would do about these young people. A big part of that is careers advice and mental health support.
Yeah.
And have the Tories lost the countryside? Traditionally, of course, the shires would be voting in. The Conservatives, not at them anymore. Why?
Good stuff. We're looking forward to it. Thank you very much. Have a good show.
Thank you very much indeed. Coming up to 14 minutes past 9. Whatever you're doing, hope your day's going well. You could win Spring Essentials now. This is our latest Great British giveaway. Yeah. There's a garden gadget package.
Right up my street.
Yeah, you have your eyes on that one. There's a shopping spree that goes with that, and there is in cash 1,200. No, it's not. It's 12,000. 12,345. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in cash. Here are the details.
We have a ton of top prizes to be won in our spring giveaway. There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like, along with £500 in shopping vouchers for your favourite store, a games console, a pizza oven and a portable Sonos smart speaker. And the best news? You could be our next big winner, just like Phil.
Whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Right, stay with us. Busy week for the Treasury with the budget on Wednesday, but the Economic Secretary to the Treasury is finding time to talk to us. That's Bim Afalami. We'll speak to him in a few moments.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
You're now in exile. I imagine it wouldn't be safe for you to go back to Russia. Can I ask you if you feel safe personally, and what do you think can be done to remove Putin, or is he going to be there for as long as he wants?
I think that is, of course, fundamental question. It is there should be pressure inside Russia and outside. Inside Russia right now, that's impossible because Putin put all leaders in jail and some of us just abroad. You know, just two were already killed. Mr. Nemtsov, Boris Nemtsov, my friend, my collaborator on my party, was killed on the walls on Kremlin. Alexei Navalny was killed in jail and in the camp. And that is, the people live in fear to identify themselves as protesters, to identify themselves as against Putin's regime, etc. That's why today there is no chance for opposition to rise inside Russia. But outside, of course, this war against Ukraine, that is the fundamental issue for all foreign leaders. And in fact, just support of Ukraine and to not to let Putin to destroy Ukraine, to defeat Ukraine. That is an important issue because just Ukraine, that's not just in Ukraine, war in Ukraine. Ukraine just fighting for their territorial integrity, but fighting for the whole European countries because after Ukraine, other countries could appear, other subject of aggression could be, and Putin easily could try to test Article 5 of NATO Charter. It could be one of the small countries of Baltic states.
Well, the Chancellor set to hand down his budget on Wednesday, and one big announcement today is
£360 million to boost British manufacturing.
Joining us now, the Economic Secretary to the Treasury, that's Bim Afalami MP. Bim, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
You've got a lot of cash there. What are you going to do with it?
So this £360 million is really important into British advanced manufacturing. That's going to be in areas of zero carbon flight, so that flights that will have no carbon emissions. It's going to be on life-saving drugs, and it's going to be on electric vehicles. And this is £360 million that is a partnership between the government and industry. So it's both sides coming together to create growth and advanced manufacturing for Britain.
But it doesn't sound like it's going to be enough to win an election. What people want to see is more money in their pocket. And you only have to look at the headlines this morning. Hunt fuels Tory jitters over election budget that is light on tax cuts. You're going to disappoint a huge wing of your party and indeed voters on Wednesday.
I'm not going to get into specific tax cuts or of any particular tax. What I will say is the Chancellor's been very clear over the weekend and before that of the need to move to a lower tax economy. Why? Not out of some ideological obsession, but because that's how you return more money into people's pockets, and that's how you grow the economy. Lower tax economies in the world, whether it be in North America or Asia and elsewhere, grow faster, broadly speaking, than high tax ones. So we are moving towards that, and we started this in January this year with a cut in national insurance for average earners, which was about £450 for your average earner. We started that process. It's a long journey, but what we won't do is we will not borrow extra to fund tax cuts, because that's unsustainable, increases inflation. So we're going to take that balanced, prudent approach, growing the economy, and tax cuts over time are definitely the way to do that. But I will not get into specifics now. We have to wait for the Chancellor on Wednesday.
We've had Priti Patel on the programme this morning, former Home Secretary, saying that when she worked in the Treasury, where you now work, under George Osborne, he made the difficult decisions that were needed to turn the UK economy around. He managed to get many of our credit ratings returned in a very difficult environment. And she's a bit worried that the plans so far are lacklustre. She wants to see more deregulation, more ideas for growth. Can you reassure her and others like her in the party that we can see some of that on Wednesday?
I mean, look, I've got huge respect for Priti, as she knows, and she's been a brilliant servant for our party for many years. What I can say to her is that focusing on the appropriate regulation is something that I personally do in my job. I'm City Minister. I deal with financial regulation every day, and making sure that we get rid of useless regulations, tie up businesses unnecessarily in red tape is something dear to my heart, and it's something that we are continually pushing back on and working on. And so in that regard, she can be reassured that she has ministers in the Treasury that agree with her on the need to cut red tape, and that enabling businesses to do what they do best, which is sell things and grow the economy.
Well, tell me about the companies you want to grow the economy. This funding is going towards several companies and projects who will make cutting-edge technology in sectors. What sort of cutting-edge technology, what sort of sectors?
So, I mean, I mentioned earlier life-saving drugs and zero-carbon flights. Let me give you another one. £100 million going in being invested by Siemens in Chippenham. This £100 million is going towards railway signalling technology. Now, you may think to yourself, well, maybe railway signalling, that doesn't sound very advanced or new. It is advanced and new because this investment will mean that you end up with more effective signals. That will mean fewer delays and a better railway system. That improves the economy by improving productivity. It's that sort of investment that we envisaged when we set out in the autumn statement £4.5 billion in advanced manufacturing. The announcements that I'm making today, and we'll hear more about as the week goes on after the budget, is an illustration of how we're actually spending that money.
Away from the budget, because we will be talking about it a lot this week, but today something significant is happening in Westminster. You'll be aware that George Galloway, due to be sworn into the Commons after winning that by-election last week. We're hearing this morning that David Davis has pulled out of welcoming him to the House because George Galloway's deputy refused to condemn Hamas. Do you think that there is a place for George Galloway and his politics in British politics and indeed in Parliament? And who will be, because it takes two MPs to welcome him to the House, who should step into the shoes then of David Davis?
I'm afraid I don't know enough about Commons procedure to know who will step in if nobody wants to do it. But the fact that people don't seem to want to do it is an indication of the standing with which he's held in the House of Commons, which is not very high. But we're in this position, really, because of the weakness of the Labour leader and, frankly, the fact that Labour still hasn't changed. They selected a candidate, Labour selected a candidate in a very safe Labour constituency, so there was lots of competition for that job, who had abhorrent views about Jewish people, abhorrent views about the war in Israel. And then you had a Labour leader, Keir Starmer, who refused for days to acknowledge them. And I'm afraid that is why George Galloway is entering the House of Commons.
Sorry to rush you. We've got to leave it there. Bim Afalami, Economic Secretary to the Treasury. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you. And thank you for your time listening and watching. Up next, Britain's Newsroom. Here's Andrew and Bev.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather. We've got some frost around this morning, some dense fog patches too, leading to some tricky travelling conditions. And then all eyes on the west as the next weather system moves in. This morning, though, plenty of sunshine across the UK away from the southwest. Cold start to the day. This weather front slowly pushing north and eastwards through the day. coming into parts of southwest England, Wales and then Northern Ireland for the afternoon. Some of the rain could be heavy at times. The wind's picking up here too, but elsewhere staying dry. Plenty of sunny spells, though sunshine turning hazy across eastern England by the afternoon. And temperatures, well, double figures for the vast majority, feeling a little warmer than the weekend. Into this evening time, this band of rain continues to push north and eastwards across the country, though it starts to weaken. It slows down across eastern parts of England, eastern Scotland here, giving a grey night with outbreaks of light rain and drizzle. Further west, some clear spells, but blustery showers quickly following on behind. Temperatures staying above freezing for everyone, with generally more cloud around. So a grey start across eastern areas on Tuesday morning, bright further west, but blustery showers quickly moving their way eastwards. But the east should start to brighten up as we move through the morning into the afternoon, as that weather system moves out the way. A few showers starting to bubble up as the temperatures rise. And for most of us, getting into double figures by the afternoon. See you again soon.
Good morning. George Galloway is arriving in the House of Commons today. Huge controversy.
The new MP for Rochdale, he won it fair and square, massive majority. Yeah. Labour's worst performance in a by-election since the war. And already he's in controversy because David Davis, a big Tory hitter, was supposed to be one of those who'd introduce him.
Yeah.
But he's withdrawn because of the views on Gaza.
From 10 a.m. every Saturday, we want to make you think and we want to make you laugh.
So we will give you all the top stories.
Now we start with a story that has shocked the nation this week.
But we're also going to make it light and fun and bring some entertainment in to make your Saturday morning nice and restful.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
People in this field and they talk about mental health assistance. And I know from personal experience within my own family circle that the help is just not there.
I know that with speaking to many families who've got autistic children and adults. They are really struggling at the moment, whether it's to do with education, getting a diagnosis. You know, once they get to 18 to 25, where's the help? There isn't the help there with social care. You know, I just set up a petition as well, who's going to look after my sons when I'm no longer around? Because that's that's the story and the question that's at the back of every parent's mind. It's just so hard at the moment, and lots of small charities are closing. And for me, they're the backbone of the society because they're the ones that speak, you know, to parents continually all the time, or autistic adults. So,
and why has it to be that way? And you know, we'll get government minister after government minister coming on and saying, we have greatly added to the resource here. We've had another 2.5 people we've hired last year, and whatever. I mean, they twist statistics and they make it all sound good. But I know from the work I do in the charitable world, and I know from people who I know personally, it just isn't there. So stop telling it is. And the thing is, the demand for mental health care has just ballooned.
The earlier you start working with children who are autistic, the better the outcomes. I've seen it myself, and I know it with my own sons. I shouldn't have had to set up a school and remortgage my home, you know, for my boys. And so many parents are still struggling, like 20-odd years from when my boys were diagnosed, and they're saying it's improving, and we're talking about awareness, we're talking about acceptance. It's hard because I'm juggling caring, I'm juggling, you know, taking him to college, picking him up, you know, I'm running a charity, I'm doing events. I know I'm a workaholic, but I'm very passionate and I'm very driven.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Morning, 9:30 on Monday, the 4th of March. This is Britain's News. You're on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Beth Turner.
We've got 59 parliamentary candidates ready to go, and we'll stand in, therefore, 70 Labour seats and either defeat them ourselves or cause their defeat.
So, Workers' Party of Britain leader George Galloway is going to be sworn in as an MP at the House of Commons today after winning last week's by-election in Rochdale. Political correspondent Olivia Otley has more.
Yes, Britain's newest MP, George Galloway, will be introduced to the Commons today, but not by Conservative MP David Davis. Find out more with me very soon.
Ministers are set to change the government's definition of extremism, which was set out 10 years ago. It's part of a crackdown on people and groups who are apparently undermining Britain's institutions and values.
And the Chancellor is drafting plans for up to £9 billion worth of tax rises and spending reductions in an effort to balance the books in this week's budget. Former Home Secretary Priti Patel spoke to Breakfast earlier.
Where are the ideas about economic growth? You know, more housing, more infrastructure, investment and development. And the government needs to be agile about that.
And she's exhausted, Queen Camilla, so she's taking a break for the first time since stepping in to lead the royal family after King Charles, of course, diagnosis with cancer. You won't believe how few royal engagement, however, she's carried out this year.
And unsolved burglaries are on the rise. Damning new figures show the police have failed